It's 7:30 p.m. Welcome to the Old Bridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment for July 16th, 2020. I'm James Sullivan, chairman of the board. I'd ask you now to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting by primarily posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, the date, the location, the agenda of this meeting, by placing the same on the Old Bridge Township website, also mailing such announcement to the Home News and Tribune, and finally filing a copy of such an announcement with the municipal clerk. Ms. Silverman, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dewhurst?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Ms. Kilduff?
Here.
Mr. Skagner?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Sekowski?
Here.
Mr. Stoner?
Here.
Chairman Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Sachs?
Here.
Mr. Gill?
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Here.
Ms. Sawant?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Lavallo?
Here.
Ms. Drum?
Here.
And myself, Kim Silverman.
Thank you, everybody, for patiently waiting for me. I thought it was going to be my first absence in 16 years. Ms. Sawant, thank you for saving me there. For some reason, I lost the invite and wasn't able to get on. Next item on the agenda is the minutes board that was from June 4th, 2020. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review them. Absent any commentary, I'd ask someone to move them for adoption.
Move them, Dewhurst.
And who's the second? Who was it? Move the second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff?
Yes.
Mr. Skagner?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Sekowski?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Before I go on to our next item, the escrow deficiency, let me just give some ground rules to those watching at home. Turn my page as well. This meeting is being conducted electronically via the internet as a webinar. It is on cable TV channel 15 in the Township of Old Bridge. It's also on YouTube, and you can watch them on either from your homes or from your own computers. It's unique and it takes patience for all involved, as we no longer are gathered in the courtroom of the township, but we're actually doing this meeting from our own homes and home offices. I remind those watching that there's up to a 30-second delay in communication. So that becomes important to remember if you wish to personally join in on the public portion this evening. Anyone calling in must lower their TV or you'll be confused by the time delay. I would also ask all participants to silence their cell phones at this juncture to avoid any disturbances during the testimony this evening. Our meeting will follow the same protocols as if we were in the courtroom. There are some general housekeeping matters to start, which I inadvertently did before reading this. They'll be followed this evening by 3 applications. One is a minor C, the other ones are full applications. And in between the second and the third application for you watching at home, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess, and that's for the benefit of the stenographer, the professionals, and for the board members. As in all applications, there is a public portion that follows the testimony in each application. If you have a particular interest in any of the applications this evening and you wish to ask questions via telephone, I suggest that you take notes during the presentation to refresh your memory. Now would be a perfect time to access pen and paper so you have it handy. The way that the testimony goes is the applicants professional, usually in both cases tonight, it will be an attorney, will lead several witnesses, several professionals, probably a planner, an engineer, a traffic engineer, in testimony. After that testimony is heard by the board, we then allow each of our professionals to either cross-examine or make commentary concerning each of the professionals, the applicant's professionals' presentation. When they're done, then I would ask the board members if they have any particular questions for the testimony by the professional, along with Mr. Sachs as well, who acts as the board attorney. And then, of course, when there's no further questioning, we would go back to the next witness. After all the witnesses, and it's normally about 3 or 4 witnesses are heard by the board, then we will ask the public, we will open what's called a public portion. You'll hear me announce that. At which time you'll be able to ask questions on any of the particular, about any of the particular testimony and through their actual witnesses. So what you're seeing right now, if you're watching this, is a virtual zoning board meeting notice. It says there's a webinar on there and a password, and there's phone numbers to call. So if you follow that and read along there, you may call in at that time when we open a public portion, and then you'll be heard live, just like you hear me talking, you will be speaking as well. So once again, I remind you, take some notes, be patient. This sometimes gets long and drawn out. So stick with us. Some of you are regulars who watch all the time and you understand how the zoning board works, and as well as the planning board. So I hope I got everything. Ms. Venus Sawan, who's the township planner, is the moderator of this, and she controls the activity that goes on by as far as the webinar on Zoom. Ms. Sawant, do you want to add anything at this time that I may have missed?
Sure, thank you, Chairman. A couple of reminders before we start. First of all, good evening all. As a reminder, zoning board members will be unmuted during the first half of the meeting when they will be required to vote on other agenda items. The zoning board attorney, the zoning board chairman, zoning board secretary, and the court reporter will remain unmuted throughout the meeting. Everyone else will be muted once the presentation of applications begins. For the applicants' professionals, they will be asked to turn on their video and unmute themselves in order in which they will testify. Please turn off your videos until then. During the public commentary period, I will announce the last 4 digits of the caller's phone number to come forward, announce their name and address. I will announce the last 4 digits of the next caller's phone number so that they know that they will be next in line. Please press *9 if you're joining by phone to call in. I will share my screen to display any exhibits. Please be mindful that there is a 30-second time lag in the presentation. The meeting information will be displayed on the screen multiple times during the meeting so that any resident who wishes to call and join the meeting can do so. Every resident who wishes to speak will be given a chance. Please be patient. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sawant. Board members, the next item is an escrow deficiency resolution. It's 3719Z. It's Vision O Bridge 3 LLC. That was for $3,000 and that has been paid. Someone want to move that, please?
I'll move it.
Who moved, who?
Who was that?
Stoner.
Stoner, and was that Ms. Kilduff?
Yes, second.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Sekowsky?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Next item is resolution. It's 1519Z, Metro Storage LLC. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is application 15-19Z. The applicant is Metro Storage. They were seeking preliminary and final major site plan with D1, D4, and C variances. Property located block 13264.11, lot 6111, at the intersection of US Highway 9 and Cindy Street. There were public hearings conducted in this matter on October 3rd of 2019, November 7th, 2019, December 5th, 2019, January 16th, 2020, February 6th, 2020, and March 5, 2020. The property is located in the OG1 General Office Zone. The subject property is located along northbound US Highway 9 adjacent to a signalized jug handle and opposite Cindy Street. Subject property lies fully within the OG1 General Office Zone. The property is currently vacant and measures approximately 11.63 acres. The property abuts an NJDOT-owned vacant parcel to the north, residences to the east, and a cemetery to the south. The applicant was proposing to construct a climate-controlled self-storage facility consisting of a 3-story building with a 42,100 square foot footprint. Additional site improvements include parking, circulation areas, lighting, stormwater management, utility improvements, landscaping, 13 parking stalls, 2 banked parking stalls, as well as 30-foot wide fire access lane around the perimeter of the building was also proposed, with 1 freestanding monument sign to the north of the proposed driveway. There were, as I stated, a D1 variance was required, as storage facilities are not permitted in that zone. As well, a D4 variance was required. 0.25 is the maximum, 0.28 FAR was proposed. And there were several bulk variances for maximum building height, maximum floor area ratio, loading, minimum off-street parking, parking and building and buffer area, and buffer along arterial frontage. As well, there were several design waivers for loading space size, number of parking spaces, landscaping strip, and landscaping strip buffer. There were a number of witnesses who testified during the several hearings that we conducted, including Mr. Robert Heilman, Vice President of Development for Metro Storage, Brad Bowler, professional engineer, John Harder, a professional traffic engineer, Mr. Nicholas Graviano, professional planner. The objectors also proffered a case. They offered two expert witnesses as well, Mr. Gordon Gemma, a professional planner, and Mr. Brooke Crossan, a engineer and planner. The application was denied, and it was the board's opinion, first of all, that there was concern about detrimental drainage impacts the project would have on adjacent residential properties to the east. And the board did not believe that granting of a use variance was warranted, as the OG1 zone does not permit storage facility uses, although a multitude of other types of uses are permitted and encouraged. As well, the board believed that the applicant failed to address the criteria necessary to support a D1 use variance. Specifically, the testimony of Mr. Gemma was compelling, and he articulated specific planning flaws in the applicant's presentation, which was persuasive for the board. Moreover, the applicant failed to satisfy the applicable Medici standards required for a use variance. And as well, the detrimental drainage impacts were confirmed by Mr. Brooke Crossan, the objector's engineer. And in balancing the credibility of the various professionals, it was apparent to the board that the issues and flaws raised by the objector's professionals and corroborated by the residents to the east of the site outweighed the proffers made by the applicant. And as a result, the board rejected the request for a D1 use variance and for a D4 floor area ratio variance, and for and design waivers, and for preliminary and major final site plan. And you have the resolution in front of you this evening.
Larry, the ones who can vote on this are the ones who denied it?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's Mr. Dewhurst and Mr. Walker, because Ms. Chevalier is not here.
That's correct.
Roll call, please, Ms. Silverman.
Does someone want to move it?
I'll move it. Dewhurst.
I'll second.
No, it has to be,
Mr. Walker, I think you have to second it.
I'll second.
okay.
Oh,
Okay, and roll call is Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. We have three continuances under item number 5 on the agenda. First one is 36-19Z. That's Jersey 34 Associates. It's in the R20. It's located at 593 New Jersey State Highway 34. We're seeking preliminary and final major site plan with C variance for construction of a second building, 22,353 square foot, including 3 basketball courts, locker room, bathrooms, expansion of parking. They're being represented by the firm of Heilman Pape. The applicant in this matter is asking that it be continued to August 6th, 2020, with further notice. So if you're interested in that matter this evening, it is not going to be heard. It will be on the agenda August 6th. The second continuance is 4-2020Z. That's 69 Ravine Avenue, I'm sorry, LLC. That's 69 Ravine Avenue. That's for a C&D variance addition to a single family home. In that matter, Bill Bajor is representing the applicant, and they are asking that that matter be continued to September 3rd, 2020 with further notice. Once again, if you're interested in that matter this evening, it is not going to be heard. It will be on the agenda September 3, 2020, and there will be further notice. And finally, the agenda just popped up the screen, excuse me. 11-2020Z. It's Waste Management in New Jersey. It's in the EDO1 zone. That's located at 283 State Highway 34. A major site plan and final site plan with the variance. They're looking to construct compressed natural gas for vehicle fueling on the location. John Sardo is representing them in that matter. Applicant asking that it be continued to October 1st, 2020 without further notice. Once again, if you're interested in that matter, that is not going to be on the agenda this evening. That will be placed on for, what did I say, October 1. Pardon me 1 second. Okay, I think I've covered them. I'm working back and forth between my phone and the computer. This, if I'm correct, Kim, the next item on the agenda is the C variance, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. All right, this is the first application for the evening. This is 36-2020Z. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Isaac Nicholson. It's for a landscape area ratio variance. This home is located in the R20 at 1 Tall Oaks Court. They're looking to do paver patio. Is Mr. Nathanson there?
Yes.
Okay, sir. Are you going to be the only one testifying this evening?
Yes, sir.
All right. The board attorney is going to swear you in before we take any testimony.
Sure.
Mr. Nathanson, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name and address for the record.
Isaac Nathanson, 1 Tall Oaks Court, Old Bridge, New Jersey, 08857.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nathanson and Mr. Sachs. Sir, when these are applications that are kind of minor in nature and are done by homeowners themselves, while this is a formal proceeding, we try to make it a little less formal for the actual homeowner. But there are certain things that you need to put on the record for the board to have an objective opinion and to render a review. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to tell the board what you want to do, why you want to do this, how you're going to accomplish that, and why is there a variance. We're going, after you speak, of course, we're going to ask the professional, the zoning officer, Damian Gill, and he'll speak after you. Normally, if we were in a courtroom, I would say to you, if you have any exhibits, you'd hand them off to your right to Ms. Silverman, but she's in the upper left square above Paul Lind, so I'm not quite sure if you can do that. I think we have, obviously, a survey of your home, and we'll reference to Mr. Gill if there's anything else. So in your own words, sir, why don't you just proceed?
Sure, thank you. So basically, I'd like to get, the reason why we're doing a variance is I applied for, to do the patio, and I was denied by the building department. And the reason why I'd like more space is I have a large family, and I'd like to get a little bit more room so we can enjoy the yard, the backyard.
Okay, you're part of a homeowners association, are you not?
Yes, sir.
Do you have anything from the homeowners association taking no position on this?
Not as of now, because I don't have an approval yet as to the dimensions. For the homeowners association, for them to give me an okay on it, they need the correct dimensions of what it is.
When I read yours, I thought it said 25 foot by 46 foot. Is that correct?
That's what I'm applying for. I haven't. That's what I'd like to get, which is the property line.
And that goes
Setback. I'm
from
sorry.
like the rear of your home to the end of the property? Is that to your back end of your property?
That's correct.
Is that where that little stockade fence is behind your property?
Well, the fence is actually on the northwest corner is about 5 feet, 5.6 feet, and on the right, which is the northeast side corner, it's 4.1 feet, I believe, from the property line.
Okay, but for reference purposes, it's fairly close to your property line, that stockade fence that's in the rear of your home, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you don't have anything else you're gonna tell us at this point, correct? I mean, anything that, I think you've said what you need to say. I'm gonna come back to you, but why don't I go to Mr. Gill and he'll tell the board exactly what the problem is or why we need to issue a variance, and if we can. Okay, Mr. Gill?
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members of the board and the public in general. So the applicant, Isaac Peterson, did, as we stated, apply for a zoning permit to install a patio in the rear yard, to extend his patio and with pavers and a walkway along the adjacent, in between the adjacent structures on his property. As the survey indicates and the application indicates, the applicant's proposing to install a roughly 20, sorry, I just want to read it correctly, 25 by 46 patio area. That patio area will go from property line to property line, left to right, and it will go from the back perimeter wall of the structure to the back or the rear property line, as Chairman Sullivan was indicating in his questioning. There are two issues there. One is a setback issue. The ordinance requires a 3-foot setback from patios and walkways to the property line. That's for drainage purposes, to not have hard surfaces that can shed water onto adjacent property. And it also has a lot coverage requirement to ensure that we maintain adequate open space on individual parcels so that we don't overbuild, as is commonly referred to. And in this case, we are violating both of those. Where 3 foot is required, he's proposing 0 on all 3 sides. And the landscape area ratio is 0.2, he's proposing 0.27, where a minimum of 0.45 is required. Now, to start, Mr. Sullivan, Chairman Sullivan, I'd like to point out that this is a alternate design standard zone. So the zoning is R5, but these are not true R5 homes. They were approved in this configuration and this fashion as part of their overall development plan for the parcel. So the 45% standard, I don't think was met prior to this proposed improvement. It's certainly, if he did meet it, he was just making it. So any improvement that he'd be making on his property, save for a couple of ancillary walkways that he's considering as part of this application, he probably would have needed relief in any event. That's why he's before the board this evening.
Mr. Gill, do you know if there's any utilities that run under that backyard, or irrigation, or that he's going to?
Not that I'm aware of. The easement, the property survey doesn't indicate any easements that we reviewed, and a review of the deed and tax information didn't result in us finding anything. While we don't normally review that stuff, we've had a couple of issues with some surveys and some properties in recent past, so we've been kind of doing a couple little extra checks to make sure but nothing resulted in us finding anything indicating any utility type improvements on the property.
Mr. Davidson, is there a irrigation system on the property?
There is an irrigation system. Yes.
There is?
A sprinkler system?
Yes.
Yes.
You might very well be putting pavers on top of that, sir.
Well, I've contacted the zoning board. I'm sorry, the HOA,
Right.
and they would be. I thought that that they would be would come out and cap the system.
Oh, well, well, we have, obviously, we have no say in that. I just wanted to point out to you, you might be more or less hurting your own property there by
Right. Well, we can't put the pavers on top of the irrigation. It
Right.
would use everything. So I would have to contact them, and they would cap it off, and at the front of the property.
Okay. Mr. Gill, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Other than obviously the LAR, it's probably not a true 45, as you say. He's at 27.27 now. He would be here for that, correct? But if he went 22 by 43, he wouldn't be here, right?
He wouldn't be here for the second variance.
For the setback.
For the
Right.
setbacks.
He'd still have the landscape area ratio.
That's what I'm saying. He'd have the landscape area ratio, but he wouldn't have the setback problem, right?
He would not have the setback problem, correct.
Is there a particular reason, sir, that you need the actual 25 by 46? If you went 22 by 43, you have no variance for that.
I'd like to get the most space as possible. I came here from New York, so there we had no space. And the reason why my wife and I bought this property is that we would be able to enjoy a larger space in our yard.
I understand. I went to your property, and there's a photo that was just put up. If you put that up, Mr. Watt, again, or Tim, or whoever put that up.
That was Miss Swan.
Okay, Mr. Watt, could you put that photo up again? You're right next to like the common playground area or community.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're the corner home. You see the first home on Dolls. All of that behind you, there's nothing going to be built on, correct?
No, there's nothing going to be built there. No, that's the HOA property behind the double fence, the wooden fence.
No, I understand. You're a member of the HOA, therefore you have rights to use the common property, but it's not obviously on your particular land. I'm just suggesting that if you cut it 3 foot on each side, the board probably wouldn't have an issue here. But let me see what they have to say. Maybe they don't have an issue with this, but I just find it unusual why you would want to use up all your green space.
Well, there's plenty of green space in the HOA property. I probably wouldn't go all the way. I'd probably, do a little bit less to have some space, but I have a lawn on the left. I have space on the right of the property, and also in the front of the property, there's green space.
Yeah. Again, I'm merely suggesting that if the width and the length were a yardstick less on each side, you wouldn't have that variance. But I'm going to go to the board and I'll see what they have to say. Board members, I'm going to start from left to right as we normally sit. Mr. Scogno, do you have any questions?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Kilduff?
No.
Okay. Mr. Connor?
Not at this time.
Okay. Mr. Dewhurst?
Mr. Chairman, I was thinking along the same lines as you were about cutting it back by 3 feet. I didn't really see why that was needed. So I'm in the same opinion as you. I think that could be cut back.
Okay. Mr. Walker?
I share the opinion of the chairman and Mr. Dewhurst about cutting it back 3 feet.
Mr. Stoner?
Yeah,
Any problem? Any questions?
no problems, no.
Okay. And Mr. Psychowski?
No questions, but I do agree with the opinion of the chair.
Okay. Mr. Sachs, do you have anything you want to advise the homeowner on?
Yes, yeah, I mean, I think I just want to comment briefly on why we have, in our zoning ordinances throughout town, in every zone, we have certain setback requirements. And the reason that we have those setback requirements is to make sure that any type of structure, when I say any type of structure, it's obviously one above ground and one on the ground, doesn't cause any undue burden on neighboring property. And particularly with the paver patio, the reason that I think we do have the 3-foot distance requirement is for drainage purposes. And it's a very important thing that if there's going to be any rainwater that's going to be coming off of this paver patio, we prefer it to be draining onto the applicant's property, and that's why that 3-foot buffer is important. In this situation, the drainage is actually going to go onto property that's common property that's owned by all the residents in the community and not just one individual. So I think it's even more of a factor. So the only thing I would suggest to Mr. Nathanson is that I think you should give very serious thought to the recommendation of the chairman by reducing the size from 25 by 46 to 22 by 43. First of all, it eliminates one of the variances that you need to obtain. And anytime you can eliminate a variance, I think that's a good thing. According to my calculations, your square footage will go from 1,150 square feet to 946 square feet of impervious surface. But I think the benefit to the community is certainly going to be protected by making sure that any drainage off of that paver patio stays on your property, or at least is able to recharge into the groundwater underneath your property and not on the common property. That's all I would have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Isn't it, in fact, he is responsible totally for his own stormwater that remain on his property and not someone else?
He is.
Okay.
He is. It's very unusual, by the way, that we would ever see any type of structure go right up to the property line. You generally, if there was any type of structure, we would try to have some type of setback there. So to have a 0 setback is not something that's favored under the municipal land use law.
Okay. Mr. Gill, you have anything you want to say?
I would just echo some of the concerns that were raised by you, Chairman, and the commissioners agree with you and Mr. Sachs. I think an argument could be made for the left side and the right side because there is green space beyond that isn't necessarily going to affect an individual property owner. I don't think that automatically means that we should throw caution to the wind and allow them to have 0 setbacks. But I think an argument can be made there because the likelihood of it affecting an individual is reduced. But on the right side of the property where he does abut a property owner, I double down on the statements that you guys have made that the possibility and the potential for sheeting water onto an adjacent parcel could create a problem. And this is such a small application. I don't think that we have to get into, stormwater management regulations and guidelines. I think by allowing us a small buffer, we give an opportunity for some of that water to be retained on the property and then to flow naturally as it would, because water's going to go where it go.
Yeah, that's precisely my point. Mr. Sachs, can we can legally grant this. We have nothing to do with the HOA, but if we granted this and they say no,
He doesn't build. It would, yeah.
But he's got a permission in hand from the township, a governing body versus the homeowners association. It's kind of like the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I mean, what'll happen is if this application is approved, one of the conditions that will attach on here is that it's subject to the property owner obtaining approval from his homeowners association. Okay. If he's unable to obtain the approval from the homeowners association, then he will not be able to build that paver patio in the configuration that's been approved by this board.
Okay. I see. I understand. So even if we granted it, it's subject to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And they may very well tell him to make it smaller.
Right.
Okay. So you understand that, sir, if whatever we do is still subject to the homeowners association, and they might cut it in half, but then again, I'm not speaking for them. I don't know. But just because you get permission from us doesn't mean you'll get permission from them. So I'm going to go to a public portion now, and I don't know if there's anybody that's going to weigh in on this. But while I'm doing that, I would like you to think about one thing, and I think about the suggestion that's been made to cut 3 feet on each side, go with 22 by 43, and we'll get rid of that particular variance. So in the meantime, I'm going to call the public portion on this. It is application number 36-2020Z. This is at 1 Tall Oaks Court. Has anyone called in on this matter, Ms. Sawant?
I don't see any raised hands, but let's wait for a
Okay.
minute.
If anybody has any interest in this matter and you want to call in, we'll wait about 45 seconds to a minute. Anything else in the meantime, sir? Mr. Nathanson, you can, if you'd like to speak in the meantime, anything you want to add?
If I may, if it's okay and if it's possible, I wouldn't build to the property line. I wanted to get the okay to do the pavers up to the property line, but if I get if I can do a foot setback in the rear and to the right, that would be great. I'd be satisfied with that if that's okay.
Well,
There's one caller with the
Thank you.
raised hand.
okay.
Number ending in 1313.
Good evening. Could you state your name, please?
Yes, my name is Adrian Kroll, Kroll.
All right, hold on. The board attorney is going to swear you in, sir.
Mr. Kroll, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
You can go right ahead. What would you like to tell the board, sir?
Well, I'm speaking on behalf of the ownership called Commercial Capital Resources that owns 99 Old Madawan Road.
Mr.
This
Kroll,
is the property.
Oh, wait a minute,
Kroll,
sir.
we haven't gotten to that application yet.
That application has.
I'm sorry.
This is about a private homeowner in another
I'm
section.
sorry. Okay.
You can call back when that application comes up, sir.
I have any idea how long it might be? Within an hour?
This is, what are you talking about? The one on Old Madawan?
Vision? Yeah, Vision Old Bridge.
Yeah.
Probably about an hour, Adrian.
Yep. The application will be next, as a matter of fact. But before you could call in, it'll probably be about an hour. Okay, sir? Okay, I think we've lost the floor. Is there anyone else, Ms. Sawant, that has?
No, there are no callers with their hands raised. No one.
Okay. All right, I'm going to close the public portion. Mr. Nathanson, I'm going to make the one final comment to you. And because you're probably not familiar with coming before boards, there's going to, you need a plurality of the votes. And if you get that, you would get your application. I want to tell you that 3 of the people have already spoken against it and suggested that perhaps you get rid of that, abate that last the setback variance by taking 3 foot off each side and making it 22 by 43. I don't know how people are going to vote, but I'm just telling you that 3 people said that.
Before we begin, Mr. Chairman, can I just say something else?
Go ahead.
I have a picture here of, it's actually my property that gets flooded from all the properties on the in the yard. So I have a picture of the property after it rains. If I can put it to the camera for everyone to see. And I don't think it would be if it's possible, there's still going to be space between the fence and the back of the property line. So I just wanted to show you here.
All right, we'll accept that photograph as A1.
A1, and
Yeah, which just shows a flooding problem, I guess, on Mr. Nathanson's property.
That's to the
Correct,
rear.
Mr. Nathanson?
That's
The
the
rear
rear.
of the property.
that's
Yes.
the rear.
Okay.
And I'm fine with it as everybody else is. So it's actually the other way around. Everybody's flooding my property instead of the other way around. And I have that 5 foot space between the property line and that back, the wooden fence. I don't see, how it can make things worse, except for, just the water getting there regardless.
Well, I understand that, sir, but it's your lot line we're talking about. We're not talking about the fence. The fence happens to be on common space of the community. We're talking about your lot line. That's what you have to be responsible for, and that's what we govern as far as the setback. We don't govern what goes
Great.
on.
It would be on grade level. And if it's okay, I mean, if I can go a setback of 1 foot, so like 24 by 45, that would be fine. It would give me ample amount of space for my family to enjoy the yard.
So Mr. Nathanson, your position is that by having a 3-foot setback, your family would not be able to enjoy the yard?
It's not the only position. My position is that I've lived in Brooklyn with a limited amount of space, and I'd like to get as much space as I can.
I understand that, and that's why we call New Jersey the Garden State, that we look to protect as much green space as we can. But, all right, listen, Mr. Nathanson, is it your request then that you would like the setback to be 1 foot instead of 0 feet?
If that's okay with the board, and then
listen, this is your rodeo. It's your application. But I think you've heard some, and by the way, I disagree with Mr. Sullivan. I heard four people, including Mr. Sullivan, express their indication that they'd like to see you do it at 3 feet. You need 4 positive votes out of 7 in order for you to have your application approved. So your call. If you want to go 1 foot, you want to go 3 foot, you want to go 0 feet, that's your decision.
Mr. Daines, before you respond, I just wanted to interject a little bit because I am hearing something and I want to make sure that we clarify for the sake of the board, because I think numerically we're making a small accounting error. We keep saying having a 3-foot setback. This is when we're talking about 3-foot setback and reducing it. In the back, we're reducing it by from 25 to 23. What was the width that we were discussing?
46.
46. And so we'd be reducing that to 40, correct?
No, 43, Damien.
That's where the math error was, because if we reduce 3 foot on either side, we'd be reducing that by 6 foot overall width. So when I was hearing from the board is a 3-foot reduction would be acceptable, but were we talking about a 3-foot reduction around the perimeter, or were we talking
The whole thing.
all right? So we're actually talking about a 40-foot by 23 foot, not 43 foot by 22 foot. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that, because I can see that becoming a headache when I go to issue a permit if this goes in the applicant's favor, however it is that it's produced.
Mr. Gill, I have a question also. On the left side of the property, being that there's that open space, the parking space, I thought that space can go to property line without the variance.
And that's what we were discussing initially. But you heard the attorney, Mr. Sachs, state that we're here for a variance on both sides. Larry, I don't know if maybe we were overlooking this, but one of the things that these are patio homes, so there is a 0 set on that left side.
Okay. Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, I get that, Damien. Yeah.
Would that mitigate a side yard variance, at least on that one side?
Well, there's no, I don't think it would, because it's only as to the building. I guess if he puts another structure in his backyard, he's still going to be bound by that 3-foot setback.
Okay.
I'm looking at the survey. It's not that clear, but I can make it out.
Yeah, no, it's part of what's throwing it off is the fact that you have that fence that sits off the property line, so it looks like it's actually 5 foot in from the property line when it's really not. All right, I just want to make sure we were clear on the numbers. Mr. Nathanson, I'll turn it back to you and the chairman and Larry.
Go ahead, Mr. Nathanson.
So I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. So now the property line on the left side of the property, if you look at the variance on the left side of the property, that property line, I have to have a setback 3 feet from there as well?
Yes,
On the right and in the rear?
correct.
Yeah, because it's a side yard and a rear yard, yes. And then a side yard on the other side on over to lot 2.
This is a little bit mind-boggling. There's I have neighbors all around me who have built property line to property line, and I think I don't think it's right that I have to cut in on the left side of the property and on the right side. I mean,
Mr. Nathan, I've sat on this board for 16 years. Mr. Sachs, I believe 17 years, and Mr. Walker, I think, is two behind me. I never heard of anybody going right to the edge of all their property lines.
Well, 3 feet is it's a lot of space, and if you picture, everybody, there's properties in the neighborhood. I've looked at this neighborhood for a long time before I purchased this home, and there's a lot of neighbors here that have property line to property line. They have their patios built out. They have their their fences.
If you're saying that the zoning board of Old Bridge gave those permissions, I am not aware of any. And those homes, they were probably, what year were they built? They were probably up before I was on the board. But nonetheless, I've never heard that come before the board. So you really have two choices. You can ask for what you wanted at 25 and 46, and we'll vote on it if you'd like to take a vote. You can reduce it by 3 foot around, so you would be off. You would have the setback, and you just have a landscape area ratio problem, which we would vote on. Or you can withdraw your application and come back with another one.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, there's one other option if Mr. Nathanson wants to do this. If he wants to go in front of the homeowners association and make this proposal that he would like it to be 25 by 46, certainly if the homeowners association states that they don't have any objection to that, then that would be certainly a benefit for him when he comes back before this board in terms of dealing with the setback variance.
Very
So
true.
I offer you that option as well, Mr. Nathanson.
How would that? Well, Mr. Sachs, how would that affect me? If they do approve it, how would that fix the if there is a drainage problem?
Well, I don't think I'm talking about the fact that if your homeowners association is not concerned about protecting the 3 foot setback that's in this zone, more power to them. And I think that would be a benefit in terms of you proceeding forward with your application. So maybe, honestly, that's probably what you should have done in the first place. You should have probably gone to the association, because I will tell you that, pardon me?
I have submitted an application to the same exact square footage that I applied here. I did apply to the homeowners association.
All right, and when are they expected to rule on that? When are they going to give you a decision?
They haven't given me a decision, but I've been contacting them for a little while now, for a couple of months.
All right, well, that's your other option. If you want to carry this for another month and come back next month and press the association for an answer, and if they say they're okay with the 25 by 46, I think that's compelling information to the board. That's your call.
If we do a vote today, what are my options if the board denies this?
You would have to come back with you have two options. One of them is you could appeal that decision to the Superior Court of New Jersey. You would have 45 days from the date of the memorialization to do so. And you could have a hearing in front of a Superior Court judge to determine whether the board was arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable in denying your application. Or you could refile a new application, but it could not be the same application. It would have to be an application that's different than this application. So conceivably, it would have to be an application with a smaller paver patio, because you don't get two shots at the apple. It's called res judicata. You'd be barred from submitting the same application twice. So,
well, I'm denied this application, this square footage anyway.
No, we haven't taken a vote on this yet. So, but I've heard a couple members express their concern about the fact that the setback is not being protected. So, my opinion, I think what you should do is probably go to the association. If you really want to have this size patio in place, then I think it behooves you to probably go to the association, get an approval from them that they have no objection to a 25 by 46 foot paver patio in the configuration that you proposed. Present that letter at the next hearing, and certainly that to me would be compelling information.
Yeah, I wish I would have known that this is the type of zoning meeting that we're having. I would have probably had an attorney present also at this
You
time.
just got free advice. You didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah, I just gave you some free advice. So
You see,
generally,
you just got
generally,
the
it's
same
not
advice.
required to have an attorney present for these types of applications. Certainly, you can do so if you'd like, but I would imagine that if you went to an attorney who's experienced in this area of the law, they would probably tell you, go to the association first to get the approval from the association. So.
I understand. So I think that's what I'll do. I'll wait for the association, and I guess we'll take it from there, because I haven't heard from them in a little while. I guess I'm going to have to press them a little bit harder to get this denial or an approval, and I'll just have to consult my attorney.
It
Okay.
probably is your best chances, sir. I really believe that. Mr. Sachs speaks from experience, and as I said, he just gave you the best advice you could probably take tonight. I fear that you would not get an approval. So why not, rather than take the chance on a vote, why don't you take the chance on getting the approval of the association?
Yes, I'll take the advice, and
And then we'll reschedule you to come back again.
Okay.
How's that?
Now,
Yeah.
What was that, Kim?
my suggestion would be to continue him to the August 6th meeting at the present moment, because that would be our next meeting without further notice, and to, at the same token, that'll give him 3 weeks time to hopefully have a letter from his homeowners association. I've been talking to our applicant here regarding trying to get a letter from the homeowners association beforehand, but he did tell me that he was having a hard time getting a hold of them, maybe because they are remote at the moment. I can't answer those questions.
Yeah, that's understandable. Mr. Sachs, does he have a deadline before the meeting in 10 days?
No, this is the vote. No, it's not like he has to produce plans on
Okay.
file. I mean, if he gets
Okay,
a letter on August, if he gets a letter August 5th, we're good.
Okay,
You know, at
is
least
that
he
okay
gets
with you?
business.
We can continue it after, if he doesn't get the letter, he can let me know.
Right.
I'll be in touch with him, and we can continue it in September when our next meeting is.
So what she's saying, Mr. Nathanson, is you're going to be on the schedule right now. You're going to be continued to August 6th.
Okay.
If you have the letter, please send it to Ms. Silverman and bring it, of course, with yourself to be able to read it into the record. And if you don't get it, then we'll just continue to the next meeting. So when you'll wind up getting it, and we'll put you on the schedule.
This way you only have one application that you're filing for versus.
Okay?
Yes, I understand.
All right, we thank you very much for coming before the board. This matter is 36-2020Z. Will be continued August 6th. No further notice. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gill.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next application. Debbie is ready?
Yes,
Yes?
yes.
And Mr. Klauser, I see Mr. Klauser. I'm gonna call it in then. This is 37-19Z, Vision Old Bridge 3 LLC. This is the CN zone. It's actually the EDO, isn't it? Site plan, preliminary, and final with C&D variances. This is at 105 Old Manawan Road for 5-story assisted independent community living. Peter Klauser is representing the applicant. Mr. Klauser.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public, and your professional staff. Nice to see everyone again. This is our third public hearing that we've conducted with regard to this application. We've presented all but one of our witnesses, Allison Coffin, our planner. We were here for 2 nights. We presented evidence from our engineer, our traffic engineer, our architect, and operations. We listened to comments from the board, your professional staff, comments from the public, and we've made some alterations to the plans that we're presenting to you this evening. I think we're positive. I think they benefit the township. I frankly think they benefit the applicant. I think they produce a better product for this piece of property for both the board and the applicant. This was originally identified as a 5-story building. We have eliminated a story. We've reduced it to a 4-story building. We've eliminated 8 of the studio apartments that were part of the part of the 4th and 5th floor. So the way the building is now configured is that it will consist of 4 stories. The first floor will remain the common area for the assisted living facility. The second and third floor will consist of 32 studio apartments to be utilized by the assisted living facility. And then the fourth floor will consist of 16 studio apartments. Of those 16 studio apartments, 12 of them will be non-age restricted and 4 of them will be age restricted. The 4 age restricted units will now be affordable rental age restricted units, which provide just about the maximum COA benefit to the township. So this will be an inclusionary development, which will set the township up for satisfaction of your 2025, I believe it is, COA obligations. In addition to that, 6 of the 32 assisted living units will be Medicaid beds, which will also contribute to your COA obligation. The 12 non-age restricted units will be available to the public for rent. We anticipate that we know that there's a need in the community for them, and we anticipate that there will be a variety of users for those units. They will include, as we've discussed before, spouses, children, other caregivers of the people that are in the assisted living facility. You may recall that this is an assisted living facility that specializes in memory care. We also believe that these units because of their affordable nature, not from a COA perspective, but the efficiency of them, will be available to young upstarts, teachers, public service people, things of that nature in Old Bridge. And then also they provide an opportunity, our client has indicated. There may be someone who has a mental incapacity, but still can live independently, still can work, but would benefit from having a 24-hour presence at the facility, which there will be as part of the assisted living component of this. In addition to that, the applicant has eliminated the parking variance that we were previously requesting. We no longer require a parking variance. So we've reduced the height of the building. We've eliminated a story. We've eliminated 8 of the studio apartments that are open to the public. We've eliminated parking variance. We've eliminated also a maximum front yard setback variance. And through all of that, have been able to maintain the applicant's commitments with regard to circulation, safety on site, and the commitments that we made to Mr. Hart and the fire department for the installation of a hydrant, the fire department connection, the circulation for the emergency vehicles, as well as the loading and dumpster areas. So all of that is able to remain. None of that changes. We've eliminated variance relief. We've eliminated
Peter,
height.
you went out.
I'm not here.
You stopped.
When did I stop? At what part of my babbling did I stop?
Peter, if you can hear me, you're frozen.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
I could hear Mr. Clauser just fine.
Okay, maybe it was me.
Okay. Mr. Chairman Sullivan, where did I leave off in your, where did I leave off?
Well, just about 30 seconds ago, and all of a sudden you were frozen. You
Okay.
described all the benefits to the township, and that the young professionals, perhaps people who were caretakers, would want to live there. And that's kind of where I lost you right after that.
Okay. Where I went from there, Chairman, was to the physical change to the site. We've reduced the height of the building. We've eliminated our parking variance that we were previously requesting. We've eliminated a maximum front yard setback variance. And in doing all of that, we've maintained all of the prior commitments to the board with regard to circulation on the site for emergency vehicles, the availability of the fire department connection where Mr. Hart believed it was appropriate, installing a hydrant on the site, and the loading and the dumpster area. I bring that up because in order to make the building a little more squat, to still have the assisted living facility, we didn't have to sacrifice our circulation around the building and the availability on site for those important safety measures. So the applicant has modified it, and has done so without sacrificing any of the prior commitments that were made, reduced some of the apartments, and is providing an inclusionary, affordable development on a piece of property that could use a little bit of rejuvenation in an area where it could use an injection of some redevelopment. So we're very proud to present this revised plan to the board. I think it's as a result of the applicant's work and also your professional work, comments that we received from the public, and certainly comments that we received from the board. The way that I'd like to proceed this evening is rather simply, I would ask if Scott Turner will return, knowing that he's been sworn and was qualified, because I need Scott to put on the record the revised dimensions to the plan. And then it's simply our last witness, who you're very familiar with, Allison, to discuss the variance relief that's associated with this. So if I could, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move right to Scott. If he needs to be sworn or qualified again, please let me know, but he was already as part of this application.
No, he doesn't need to be sworn, obviously. Just let me ask Mr. Sachs a question. Mr. Sachs, this is perfectly
Yes.
okay to go back and change this, correct?
Pardon me, Mr. Sullivan, I didn't hear you.
This is perfectly okay to represent a new presentation here, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Right. What happened is they made some changes to the application.
Right.
The plans were on file 10 days before the hearing, so I think at this point, it's certainly proper for Mr. Turner just to testify as to the revisions.
Thank you. I just wanted your advice on that. Mr.
Yep,
Klaus,
no
go
problem.
right ahead.
Thank you. Scott, if you could join us by unmuting and bringing up your visual. I would remind you that you're still under oath. You're testifying as a professional engineer. And if you could just take the board around some of the changes that are to the plan from a physical perspective.
Sure, I can do that. And good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you all again. Vina, if you have my revised rendering, if you could share that.
Scott, I believe this is it, right?
That's the only one I think we have.
Okay. All right. There should have been a colored rendering, but that's okay. We'll use this. This is an exhibit that we prepared. It's an engineering site plan. It's a revision number 2 dated June 10th, 2020, prepared by my office, and it represents the revision to the plan that Mr. Klauser just outlined to everybody. That's the old one, Vina. You can put the black and white.
And just for the record, there's no need to mark as any exhibit number since this was part of the submission.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. Okay, so as Mr. Klauser pointed out, what we did with this plan is we took off the top story of this building. The architect revised the footprint. So we're now working with a 4-story building with a new footprint area of 8,837 square feet, as opposed to when it was a 5-story building of 6,991 square feet. So the footprint got a little bit larger in order to accommodate the needs of the application. The building height, of course, got reduced from 60 feet to 50 feet with the reduction of that floor. The first floor will remain as the common area. The second and third floor are the 32 assisted living units. 24 of those units will have 1 bed in each unit, and then the other 8 will have a maximum of 2 beds in each unit. The fourth floor will be the 16 studio apartments with 12 non-age restricted units, 4 age restricted units, with 3 of them being affordable, as pointed out by Mr. Klauser.
No, Scott, you weren't part of that. If I may interrupt, all 4 will be affordable.
All 4, okay.
All 4 will be affordable.
That's news, I'm sorry. Okay, that's good. So what we also did in relationship to that, we modified the layout of the plan accordingly to accommodate the new building footprint. We now have 48 9x18 parking spaces, as opposed to originally showing on the property 56 spaces. The circulation around the building is identical to the prior plan. The driveway access off of Old Mattawan Road and off of School Street is identical. The location of the dumpster area, the transformer pad, the generator, etc., are all identical. None of that has changed. We really simply just lopped off a few of those parking spaces in order to accommodate the new building footprint. There were some zoning changes that took place with respect to this revision to the building. The landscape area ratio reduced slightly from 0.32 to 0.31, so we are requesting that variance. The impervious coverage on the site increased slightly from the prior plan from 67.6% to 68.9%. The setback from School Street went from 12.99 feet, which is the area between the side of the building and the edge of the loading area. In that location, the setback is 8.77 feet now as opposed to 12.99 feet. The floor area ratio is now 0.83, and that does not include the basement. The loading area was reduced slightly in width from 15 foot to 13 foot. It's still 60 feet long, and it's still in its prior location per the original plan. As Mr. Klauser pointed out, we've kept all of our commitments in place with respect to all of the township staff reports, as well as the comments made by the fire marshal in town. We've eliminated that parking variance. There's no longer a need for that. The township requirement based on the breakdown of units is 48 spaces required by township ordinance. The property now provides for 48 parking spaces, and the New Jersey Residential Site Improvement Standards requires 45 spaces. So we are 3 over what is required by that standard. We've also eliminated that maximum front yard setback variance. It's a bit of a strange zoning standard, but the maximum setback off of Old Mattawan Road was set at 50.0 feet, and that is what the building is set back currently. So we took out of the 10 prior bulk variances as listed in Ms. Sawant's review letter, we've eliminated 2 of those variances, the front yard setback variance, maximum front yard setback, and then the need for the parking variance as well. There were a couple of changes to the parking, the other variances that were needed with the application, and I think it's important to get them on the record just so that they're all accurate with respect to this new plan. So if I'm looking again at the letter from Ms. Sawant that's dated on March 13th, 2020, and it's her page. And it's her page 5. There's a top table 2 variances that are listed. And what I'll do is I'll just quickly go through what the changes were. Minimum lot area, of course, this has not changed. We have a minimum front yard along School Street. Prior was 12.99. It's now 8.77 feet. Variance required for that. A maximum front yard along a state highway. We had previously listed that as 60.14 feet. But in actuality, that was not the maximum distance the other building was from the state highway. The new distance is 105.47 feet as a maximum setback off the state highway, so that requires a variance. We spoke about the front yard along Old Mattawan Road. That's been eliminated. The building height is now set at 50 feet. The floor area ratio is at 0.83. The landscape area ratio is 0.31. And we have a landscape buffer of 8.77 feet as opposed to the prior 12.99. Dwelling units per gross acre has not changed. We've eliminated the parking space variance, and the loading area has not changed. So that is the extent of the modifications to the plan as it's presented this evening.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Chair, I have no further questions for Mr. Turner. He's available for the board and your professionals. And my next witness is Allison to provide the planning testimony. I think you're muted, Mr. Chair.
Scott confused me. He said you're now going to have 48 spots, correct?
Yes.
Instead of you're required to have 56.
56 was the prior site plan. When we had a 5-story building, we had 56 parking spaces provided. We've reduced that number to 48. So we now comply with the town standard, which is 48 spaces.
Thank you. I understand it now. We'll ask the professionals, Ms. Sawant.
Scott, I just have a very quick question. The loading area now is 13 feet wide, right?
Yes,
Which was reduced, I guess.
correct, from 15 feet, yes.
So I believe you will need a design waiver for the loading area size. The
Is 15,
ordinance
is 15 the minimum standard?
14 is the standard, 14 by 60. So you're at 13 feet, so you'll need a design waiver.
Then we would request that design waiver based on the size of the loading vehicles anticipated here. 13 feet, in my opinion, is substantial in width in terms of what we anticipate.
And in terms of the height of the building, I know you said the height of the building is 50 feet. So that is the top of the roof, correct? So that will be what the neighbors would see, 50 feet, correct?
Correct.
I think I don't have any further questions. You've gone through the variances in detail, so I'm good.
Ms. Shapiro?
I have no questions for Mr. Turner. I just appreciate that all the comments in the engineering report he has committed again to in his testimony today that will be accomplished. And just know that a formal technical review, although submitted to the board, this revised plan has not taken place. But seeing the plans visually now tonight can be accomplished by taking care of the comments that were in the engineering report, should the board look favorably on the application. So I have no problems with what is presented tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Lavallo, are you out there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Does this this change affect you in any way?
No, the letter that I wrote on March 16th still applies to this, with the vegetation on the south side and the preservation of the large tree that's off property. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lavallo. Fire Marshal Hart, are you there?
Yes, I am, Jim.
Tom, what about?
A couple of questions, Scott, from last meeting. Parapet. What's the height of the parapet wall?
The parapet wall, from our understanding and discussions with our architect, will be 3 foot 6 inches in height.
Are the RTUs going on the roof or are they going on the ground?
They're on the roof.
They are on the roof.
Yes.
Are we going to have the stair towers projecting above the roof, or are they stopping on the 4th floor and a ladder for the emergency access?
My understanding is that it will stop and there'll be a ladder to access that roof.
From the stair towers or from?
Yes, from the stair towers, but if our architect needs to jump in to verify that, I'd ask that he do that, but that's my understanding.
Well, that's the only concern I have, is about how we're gonna get up to the roof.
Right.
Besides jumping over the parapet wall, but mechanically, how are they gonna maintain the RTUs on the roof if they can't get up there? But, all right, so 3 foot 6, that's the standard, right? I believe.
Correct.
Okay. Other than that, Jim, that's everything I was concerned about last meeting. So 4 stories is better than it was, so
Okay.
I'm fine with everything else.
Thank you, Fire Marshal.
Thank you, Jim.
Am I missing any other professional at this point before I go to Mr. Sachs? And then I'll
Yeah,
go.
Miss Drum.
I'm sorry, Ms. Drum, there you are. Go right ahead.
That's all right. So yeah, Vina covered the one issue that I was going to bring up, which was the loading zone. Scott, the only question that I have, and I can't see it on the exhibit, is the width of the sidewalk on the side of the building near the parking. I'm just curious, how wide is that at the lowest point, the minimum point?
Is that on the easterly side of the parking on the site?
Yeah, on the right side as you're seeing the exhibit.
Right, so we have a minimum sidewalk width of 4 feet where it's just up against the curb line of the driveway. That's its minimum width.
Yeah, I think I'll defer to Nicole, but I think you're gonna need a design waiver for that because I think the ordinance requires 5 feet.
Yeah, yes, you would need a design waiver for that. Thank you, Deanna.
Correct. And other than that, that's all I have right now.
Thank you, Ms. Drum. Larry, before I ask any of the board members, do you have anything for Mr. Turner at this point?
No, I'm satisfied for now, Jim.
Okay, I'm gonna go from left to right on the board again because I cannot see your faces all at this time. Mr. Scogno, anything for Mr. Turner?
Nothing at all, sir.
Ms. Skilduff?
Nothing. I'm good.
Mr. Connor? We'll come back to Mr. Connor.
Nothing. I'm sorry.
Nothing? Okay. Mr. Dewhurst?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, Mr. Walker?
Nothing.
Mr. Stoner? Okay, I can't see him on the screen. Okay, Mr. Stoner, do you have any questions? You're muted. No questions? Raise your hand if it's no questions. Thank you. Mr. Sykowski?
No questions.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Klauser, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
I'd like to present Allison Coffin. She's testified before this board, I know, a number of times. Perhaps if Ms. Coffin could be sworn, and I'll ask her for the law's sake to just put her credentials on the record.
Okay. Allison, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, and professional affiliation for the record.
Allison Coffin, last name Coffin. I work for James W. Higgins Associates out of Ocean Township. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, and I'm certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners.
For those watching at home, Ms. Coffin and her father have appeared numerous times before this board, and we accept her credentials, and she's well versed in planning. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allison, this is your third time appearing on this application. You've listened to all the testimony virtually, and you participate in all of our preparatory meetings. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you could, what I would ask is if you could take the board through, I'm sorry, one more quick question. And you've had sufficient time to review the revised application and the reduced building that was presented this evening. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
So if I could, I would ask, as I always do, if you could take the board through the proofs that are necessary to allow them the opportunity to provide a positive vote on this application.
Sure. The applicant proposes to develop the site with an assisted living memory care center with studio apartments above. The site plan provides for demolishing the existing structure and constructing a new 4-story building. The memory care center occupying the first 3 floors. That first floor is common space. Floors 2 and 3 have 16 assisted living studio style units each for a total of 32. And the 4th floor is studio apartments with a total of 16 units, 4 of which are age restricted, and 3 of those age restricted units will be affordable. The property is located in the EDO1 commercial neighborhood zone, and the purpose of this zone is to permit a small scale mix of office, retail, and light industrial uses to allow Old Bridge Township to attain the goals of accommodating market forces, increasing the local rateable base, expanding the local and regional jobs base, providing a more diverse mix of goods and services to residents and businesses within the municipality and region, achieving an improved balance of residential and non-residential development within the municipality, and utilizing suitable land for development in a more efficient, functional, and aesthetic manner while controlling and managing highway access and traffic congestion, minimizing impacts on adjacent land and nearby residential development, and protecting environmentally sensitive areas. There are a variety of permitted uses in this zone, and it includes some manufacturing uses, retail uses, information service uses, finance and insurance, real estate, rental and leasing services, some professional, scientific and technical services, management services, administrative support, healthcare and social assistance uses, some arts and entertainment and recreation uses, some limited uses within that category. Food service, including full service restaurants, and some other types of service uses, tradesmen, wholesale trades, and educational services. So this is a very diverse zone that has a lot of types of uses permitted in it. However, it does not permit residential uses, so the applicant is requesting a D1 variance for the mixed use of memory care with studio apartments. As far as bulk variances go, the lot is slightly undersized with 1 acre required, and it's at 0.98 acres, and that's an existing condition. There's a variance requested for minimum front yard along School Street, maximum front yard to the Route 18 on-ramp. We've got some D variance relief we're looking at for FAR, density, height, a bulk variance for the height in stories, minimum landscaping, the landscape buffer, but we have eliminated the variance we'd been requesting for parking. So it's my opinion that special reasons exist for the granting of the requested variances, for the use variance in particular, and that the site is particularly suited to the proposed uses. And there's no significant detriment to the zone plan or the surrounding properties that would result from the granting of these variances. Looking first at that assisted living memory care center, the positive criteria for that use is met by the nature of the use itself, which is inherently beneficial. With regard to inherently beneficial uses, the Supreme Court has set forth a 4-part test, and it includes the first prong of the test, establishing the magnitude of the benefit. In this instance, the use will provide assisted living and memory care services to about 32 to 40 patients at a time. Now, there is currently a significant need for these services in Old Bridge, as there's only one other assisted living facility in the township. The proposed facility is even more unique in that it will specialize in memory care, making it the only one of its kind in the township. Consequently, the magnitude of the benefit that this use will provide is tremendous. The second prong of the inherently beneficial test is determining the magnitude of any potentially negative impacts from the proposed use. And potential negative impacts could include things like aesthetics, noise, traffic, and safety impacts. So looking at aesthetics, there will be significant improvements to the site, which is currently occupied by a blighted structure. The proposed building is attractive, and the landscaping proposed will provide significant visual improvements to the property. Therefore, the aesthetics of the site will be significantly improved and will not be a detriment. Looking at noise, there's no substantial noise that emanates from this type of use. All of the activity occurs indoors. Consequently, there's no negative impact in terms of noise. Traffic, there's no significant impact from the proposed use, especially as compared to some of the permitted uses in the zone. With regard to parking, there will be adequate parking provided on the site. And based on that, it's my opinion that any anticipated negative impacts from the memory care center use will be minimal and have already been mitigated by the applicant through the site plan design. Now, the third prong of that inherently beneficial test, the SICA test, is that once the negative impacts have been identified, we have to provide measures to mitigate those impacts. In this instance, there's no significant impacts left for the applicant to mitigate. They've already identified them, anticipated them, and addressed them in a satisfactory manner through their site plan. The last prong of the SICA test is to take measures to reduce any remaining negative impacts. In this case, we have an applicant that has anticipated and addressed the potential for negative impacts, and it would be appropriate for the board to include the measures described by the applicant throughout their testimony as conditions of approval to assure that negative impacts are avoided in the future. So the other use that the applicant's requesting is those studio apartments on the 4th floor, and that's not an inherently beneficial use by itself, but they do advance the purposes of the municipal land use law in that the site is particularly suited to this proposed use. The primary intent of the additional housing is to serve family members of the residents of the assisted living facility proposed for floors 1 to 3. For the studios to serve that purpose, they need to be located in the same building as the assisted living units. This arrangement is unique, and it serves a very valid public need to allow spouses and other family members to live in close proximity when one of them requires a higher level of assisted care than the other can provide. Right now, there's not many options for couples who find themselves in this situation where they must live separately. The proposed housing offers a solution that would allow them to live closer together. Now, the secondary intent for this housing is to allow for housing for people who don't need full assisted living level of care but who could benefit from on-site a la carte support through the assisted living facilities, clinical and social services staff. And in order to provide that kind of support, the apartments need to be in the same building as the assisted living facility. This housing will also be available to the general public, which ensures viable use and occupancy. The anticipated type of tenant would be a young professional, a downsizing senior, a returning veteran, and that type of housing. While this type of tenant does not benefit directly from the close proximity to the assisted living facility, the assisted living facility will benefit from their occupancy because it helps offset the costs for patients in that facility. Given that the ideal tenants for those studio apartments are directly linked to the assisted living, and the assisted living facility will rely on the studio apartment income to help keep down the cost for its patients, the studio units proposed must be located on the same site as the assisted living facility, and that makes this site on which the use is being proposed particularly suited to the mix of assisted living and studio apartments. And the other D variance relief the applicant is requesting is for floor area ratio, density, and height variance. And these are all subsumed within the use variances that are requested and are appropriate for the uses proposed. So looking first at floor area ratio, the FAR limit in the ordinance is for the type of commercial uses anticipated in the EDO1 commercial neighborhood zone, most of which would require a significant amount of parking based on floor area as compared to the proposed use. It would not be possible to provide for all the needs of this use with a conforming FAR, which is why I say that the FAR is subsumed within the use variance. For this use to function properly, it needs the floor area proposed. In this case, the unique use on this unique site can accommodate the proposed FAR. The parking proposed is conforming and adequate to support the use, and the site has ample space for landscaping along Old Matawan Road frontage and the ramp to Route 18. Looking at density, the ordinance permitted density, as there's no residential uses permitted in the zone, is 0. Any residential housing, assisted living or otherwise, would require density relief. Therefore, this variance is subsumed within the use variances for the residential units proposed. The number of units proposed, with 32 assisted living studios and 16 non-assisted living studios, can be accommodated on the site and allows for the use to function properly. The last D variance is for height. And the height in this case is related to the uses proposed, the amount of floor area needed for them, and the need to balance the building footprint with parking lot circulation and open landscaped area on the site. The height is needed to provide all the interior space needed for the assisted living facility, including 1 floor of communal space and 2 floors of studio units, and then that additional floor of studio housing to enhance and support the memory care center. Now looking at the bulk or C variances, these variances can be granted without detriment. Some of the variances are the result of hardship. Lot area is a pre-existing condition, and the lot's undersized by 0.02 acres, which is a de minimis exception to the zone requirements. The front yard setback, both the maximum and the minimum. We have a lot here that has 3 frontages, which makes it very difficult to conform to the minimum and maximum setbacks on all 3 sides. The minimum front yard setback variance is to School Street, which is a dead-end street that basically services this site and one other. Traffic on this street is therefore extremely limited, and the intrusion into the front yard on School Street will have no detriment and has the benefit of allowing for an efficient location for the loading zone to service this building. The maximum front yard setback to the Route 18 ramp is a clear hardship, as this site is a through lot that's irregularly shaped and has dueling frontages. If the applicant were to meet the maximum setbacks to this frontage, the building would need to be significantly deeper, impacting circulation and parking. We also are requesting a variance for the number of stories, and this variance results from the use, and the D variance we're requesting from height. The variance for minimum landscaped area, the applicant is requesting this relief in order to maximize the functioning of the parking lot, but they have offset this by proposing ample landscaping on the areas of the site that are landscaped. And then a landscape buffer variance is being requested. And this is for the 8.7 feet along School Street where 15 feet is required, and adequate landscaping is provided for the remainder of the site despite the deficient buffer in this one location. There is, in my opinion, no substantial detriment to the granting of the requested variances. The site can accommodate the proposed use, the proposed FAR, the density, and the height. The building itself has been designed to be attractive, and the site plan supports the use while providing aesthetically pleasing landscaping and safe, efficient parking and circulation. The variances would not substantially impair the intent and purpose of your master plan and zoning ordinance. Though the multifamily use and the assisted living facility is not permitted in the zone, the use is in keeping with the mixed-use character of this area. And the goal of the EDO zone is to accommodate market forces, increasing the local rateable base, expanding the local and regional jobs base, providing for that more diverse mix of goods and services to residents and businesses. This type of use does fit within the larger purposes of the EDO zone, so I don't think it would have a detrimental impact to the zone. The proposed use and site plan advances this purpose by providing for unique service supporting township residents in an aesthetically pleasing manner, and the redevelopment of this site as proposed advances that purpose. There's a tremendous public benefit to the redevelopment and reuse of this site in particular. The site has approval for 3 stories of medical uses with 15,000 square feet in total. This would have a far greater traffic impact than the proposed use. And the site is occupied by a fire damaged structure and has been in this state for more than a decade. The current condition of the site is one of blight, and it has a negative impact on the character of the area. The net impact of the application before the board tonight will be to rehabilitate this site. The blighted structure will be replaced with a new attractive one. The high intensity approved medical office use for this site will be replaced with a quiet mix of assisted living and studio apartments. The rehabilitation of this property is critical to improving and revitalizing this neighborhood. And for those reasons, it's my opinion that the board may grant these variances.
Thank you, Allison. I just would like to just go through 2 things with you. One, you were part of the application from the inception. You helped guide us through and support the original application, which was more intense from a height perspective. And now you participated in the reduction of the height. I would think that that only further supports your testimony in favor of this application for the proposed property.
Absolutely.
Is that accurate? And then secondly, our original proposal, Mr. Chair and members of the board, was because these are rentals to have 3 of them be affordable. However, again, I went to law school and I'm not very good with math. Vina pointed out to me that when we do the calculation, we're slightly over 3 and we're supposed to round up. And the applicant certainly does. And so we made them 4. I know earlier in Allison's testimony, she had indicated that there would be 3 affordables. That's my fault, not hers. This was something we discussed and realized today that it should be 4. And your applicant's commitment is that they be 4. And then Allison, affordables, both the Medicaid beds as well as the affordable rental apartments, those are also classified as inherently beneficial uses under the municipal land use law and receive special treatment. Is that also correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chair, Allison, thank you again for your very thorough testimony. I have no further questions of Allison. She's available to your board and your professionals.
Thank you, Mr. Clauser, and thank you, Ms. Coffin. Let's go to Ms. Sawant.
Yes, actually, I do not have any questions for Allison. I do have a comment, and I want to elaborate a little on the affordable housing part. So, like I'm sure the board is aware, every township is required to create affordable housing units within the municipality. Old Bridge has a court-approved plan, which was approved in 2017. However, it used to be affordable housing was under the control of the Council on Affordable Housing prior to 2015. But in 2015, the Supreme Court took jurisdiction over it, and the plan we have currently, the court-approved plan, is approved by the Superior Court. We have met our affordable, we have a plan in place to meet the affordable housing obligation till 2025, but we are in 2020. So the next plan is going to begin soon, and we have to prepare and plan for the next round. This project actually will help us earn like 6 credits in terms of the Medicaid beds. So each Medicaid bed earns us 1 credit. At the same time, the 4 affordable housing units that are age restricted will earn us 1 credit each. Plus, there is a rental bonus associated with age restricted rental units. And typically, it's 0.33 unless Fair Housing changes the rules for the next round. But the current regulation is for every age restricted rental units, we multiplied by 0.33 to get a rental bonus. So in overall, this project will earn us 11.32 affordable housing credits for the next plan. And I think that serves as a positive criteria in itself, because when you are preparing for your next round, these will come very handy for us. So I see that as an advantage of the project. And I wanted to bring that up to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Watt.
Thank you.
Ms. Shapiro?
Mr. Chairman, I have no comments.
Okay. Ms. Drum?
No, I have none. No, thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Hart, I don't think you have anything, but I'm going to ask you.
No, thank you, Jimmy. No questions.
Okay. And Mr. Sachs?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would echo the same sentiment that Vina has just indicated. I think it's a very laudable goal when we can obviously achieve additional affordable housing in the municipality, and those credits and having represented other municipalities on their COA obligations. You're always looking for these affordable housing credits, and the fact that if this application is approved, you'll pick up some much needed credits for the next round of COA in 2025. I think it's a good thing. So,
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. It sounds like the new plan puts more into less. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I hope it makes sense to the neighborhood as well. I'm going to go to the board, Mr. Klauser, at this point and ask if there's any questions. I'll start as always on my left, Mr. Scogno.
No questions, sir.
Okay, Ms. Calduff.
No questions.
Mr. Connor, please.
No questions, sir.
Mr. Dewhurst.
No questions.
Mr. Walker.
No questions.
And Mr. Stoner. Mr. Stoner.
And
None? Okay.
None.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Psychowski.
No questions.
Okay, back to you, Mr. Klauser.
Mr. Chair, that's your applicant's presentation. It's taken us 3 nights. We've gotten through it virtually. So I know that we still have to open up to the public. Perhaps after the public is concluded, I would just like, 30 seconds or so to just sort of sum up.
Yes, absolutely. I was hoping that before I go to the public, you just highlight once again what happened from what they last heard. So we were now at 4 stories.
Sure. Yeah, I can certainly do that, Mr. Chair. Yes.
While we have the number up, it would be a perfect time, Mr. Klauser.
Thank you. Yes. What we had done was last time when we were here and as part of the original application, it was a 5-story building. It was 24 assisted living units and 24 apartments. And they were all non-age restricted apartments. There was a point in the presentation last time where we tossed around the idea of maybe making those 24 age restricted. But before any of that was set in stone, we came back with this revised plan. So the revision that you see now is a building where we've eliminated a story. We've eliminated 8 of the non-age restricted apartments. We now have 16 studio apartments, 12 of which are non-age restricted. 4 are age restricted rentals that are affordables, providing the benefit to the township. And then we have the 32 studio rooms, which are part of the inherently beneficial assisted living facility. And in doing all of that, we eliminated the parking variance. I keep saying it, I'm very proud of it. And we've also managed to maintain all of the site circulation and safety measures that are part of the application. So I think, Chairman, you said it best. There's more in a good way. There's more in less here. We're able to produce more of a benefit from the township. We're able to provide more of the inherently beneficial use portion of this and still allow it to have sort of that supporting component on the fourth floor.
Thank you, Mr. Clauser. At this point, I am going to open up the public portion. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube or Channel 15, you see in front of your screen the phone numbers. I'm going to ask Ms. Sawant in a moment if we have any as of yet. I would ask again, as always, please be succinct in your questioning. We have no problem answering anything that you have, but again, I ask people not to be repetitive, and I ask you to be succinct so we can move on there. I don't know if there's very little commentary. I'll extend as much time as possible, but I also would like to get as many people as possible who would like.
We have one caller, Mr. Shore.
Caller, would you state your name, please?
This is Ken Short.
Okay, Ken, the board attorney is going to swear you in, okay?
We have another caller, Miss Cesare and Lorraine. You will be next.
Mr. Short, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name and address for the record.
My name is Ken Short, S-H-O-R-T. I live at 13 Pemberton Drive, Matawan, New Jersey, 07747.
Go ahead, sir. What would you like to tell the board or questions that you might have?
Actually, I'm just calling once again in support. I think with the changes that we heard tonight, it brings it into, you know, what already exists along that corridor. The Maher Costello complex is a 4-story building. The hotel under construction on Spring Valley and Route 18 is a 4-story building. The apartments on Old Amboy Road, which are 3 stories of living space, but with the gabled roof and the ridgeline, it's a 4-story, it has the appearance of a 4-story building. I think the changes make the building a much better fit there. And we've had the opportunity, a couple of us, to meet with the developer. And, you know, one of the things he did agree was to offer to some of the special needs children in our community who are able to live independently, which I think also gives an added benefit to the facility. It's a redevelopment for an area that, you know, for 5-6 years I drove past for work and just used as a bypass. But most importantly, I think it's an opportunity to take a building that is is blighted and ugly and transform it into a beautiful space that could really add a lot of value to that area. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you very much. The board takes notice and your comments are part of the record. Ms. Sawant, who's the next caller?
Cesare and Lorraine.
Next caller, would you state your name, please?
Cesar Casara. I reside at 21 Rondell Lane, Lawrence Harbor, New Jersey, 08879.
The board attorney will swear you in, sir.
Sir, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I just missed your last name. Could you spell it for me, sir?
Sure. It's spelled Casara, C-A-S-S-A-R-A.
Thank you, Mr. Casara. Please go ahead.
I think it's a great thing that's going on here with the building that's being provided here. It gives us an opportunity to grow the ability to have the responsibility and accountability with special needs community here, and give them the give them the privilege of showing some independence and limited supervision. It also creates the opportunity here, sort of like if these adults are able to get to live on their own and independence and show the responsibility and accountability, it almost performs a good impact, almost like big brothers and sisters for the incoming generation of the special needs children. I think this community has a great need for this, and hopefully that this is a building block for a bigger and brighter future in this town.
Well, we thank you very much. You're very well spoken, and you hit on some rather important community perceptions and things that can help the community. So we thank you for calling. You are part of the record, and the board takes note of all your commentary.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next caller.
I think we should give a minute. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay.
How is it that you raise your hand again, Vina? Is it *9?
Yes, press *9 to raise your hands.
Thank you.
There's nobody.
I'll wait for you, Ms. Sawant, seeing as you're the moderator. Mr. Klauser.
No
with your-
hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Klauser, I forgot to ask, I know I opened the public portion, and I'm going to close it at this point. The public portion for this matter is closed. I forgot to ask Mr. Lavallo. I hope you don't mind.
No, of course not.
Okay, Mr. Lavallo, I passed you by. It was by accident because I can't see you in the courtroom and I can't see your name on here, but I know you're out there and I was reminded by Kim. So go right ahead, sir, if you have anything.
Appreciate the consideration. I have nothing.
Okay, well, we didn't want to forget you. It is a little difficult as I editorialized at the beginning. When you're not familiar with the situation and you can't see people in front of you, sometimes you often forget.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman, there are no hands raised.
Okay, very good. The public portion has been closed. Mr. Klauser, you said executive summary now?
Yes. Well, prior to the public portion, I recapped again, so I'm not going to repeat all those modifications. But I think that you have an applicant here that's worked with your board, your professionals, their contract purchaser of the property. This is somebody that is coming in with the opportunity to take a piece of property that's been in disrepair for a while, rehabilitate it, inject some rejuvenation into that area of Old Bridge right there as we get onto Route 18. The applicant has modified the intensity of the building and at the same time has worked with all of your professionals to create the appropriate inclusionary affordable development to benefit the township. So we have a number of inherently beneficial uses that are part of this application, from the assisted living facility to the apartments that'll be affordable, to the Medicaid beds that'll be affordable, and then of course to the combination of the two uses benefiting each other. So I think it's an application that has been worked through the process, and I would ask if the board could act favorably on the application.
Thank you, sir. I got to say that it was a great presentation, and I'm very impressed with what you did. When I said more, seems like there's more with less, but less referring to the size of the building. But I think that I know not only Mr. Short, but Mr. Casara, residents of the community who really spoke the loudest and made some real good common sense. And it certainly seems that this is inherently beneficial, and that use would probably prosper there. So we'll see how that goes on after the vote. But Mr. Sachs, any final comment or instruction to the board?
The only thing, Mr. Chairman, is we'll have to take a few votes on this. The first one would be for a D1 use variance. Then we can probably vote on the bulk variances and design waivers together, and then for preliminary approval and final approval.
Do we have to do 1, 4, 5, and 6 separately? I think.
Yes, we should. We should.
Right. Okay, we'll do the Ds and then we'll move on to the bulks.
Yep.
Okay. This is for use variance, D1 use variance at the location. Everybody's been here for this application, so unless you have any questions, I'm going to ask someone to move it.
Motion.
Connor, motion to approve.
Second, Kilduff.
Mr. Connor makes the motion. Ms. Gilduff seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst?
With the changes made and the inherent benefit to the township, my vote is yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
I don't believe that we should be changing the outlook of the town by variance. They're asking for so many D variances. And I cannot approve of that, so my vote's gonna be no.
Mr. Psychowski,
I vote yes.
Chairman Sullivan,
Yes, I like the new plan better than the old plan, and my vote is yes to the D1 use. As to D4, floor area ratio, does someone want to move it?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dewhurst,
Second, Dewhurst. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno.
Yes.
Bruce doesn't vote, right?
No, he can vote. He can vote. It's fine.
Yeah.
Mr. Walker,
My vote is no.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan,
Yes. D5 for density. Someone want to move it?
I'll move it. Psychowski.
Psychowski, who's seconds?
Second, Kilduff.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
No.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan,
Yes. And then finally for D6 is height. I'll move it.
Motion.
who seconds?
Second, Kilduff.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jim. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
No.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes, and I just want to leave a comment that I appreciate you working with the public and listening to their concerns about the height.
Chairman Sullivan,
Yes, well put, Mr. Psychowski. My vote is yes. Then we have the bulks, correct, Larry? Do we need
The
to?
bulks and there's a design waivers as well.
Okay.
There's a design waiver, I think, for the width of the sidewalk.
Wasn't there something else?
And
that-
the loading dock.
Loading dock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is for the bulks in total, right? Not the design waivers?
No, we could do them together.
We can?
Yeah, let's do them together. Yep, that's fine.
The design waivers and the bulks. Someone want to move?
Motion. Kilduff.
Is there a second?
Dewhurst,
Second.
Dewhurst is seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
No.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan,
Yes. We got major
Preliminary.
and final.
Yeah, preliminary, and we could do a separate vote on final also.
Okay. Preliminary site plan.
Site plan.
I'll move it.
Second. Psychowski.
Psychowski seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
No.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan,
Yes.
and final,
And finally final.
I'll move it. Dewhurst,
Second.
Dewhurst is
Psychowski.
second. Psychowski seconds.
Mr. Dewhurst,
yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
No.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan,
Yes. That wraps it up.
Thank you very much.
Once again, Mr. Clauser, thank you all your professionals for your presentations this evening and for the hard work that you did to make this work a lot better, I think, for the community.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'd say
Okay.
good evening, but I'm here for the next one.
Yes, I know.
we're gonna take a break.
We're going to take a recess at this point. If you're watching at home, let me look at my time here. It's 9:24. How about 9:30 or 9:31? We will come back on. Please, everyone, mute yourselves and turn off your video. But 9:30 or 9:31, please sign back on. Could we please have a roll call? We'll call the meeting back to order.
Sure. Mr. Dewhurst,
Here,
Mr. Connor,
Here.
Ms. Geldof,
Here.
Mrs. Cogna,
Here.
Mr. Walker,
Here.
Mr. Psychowski,
Here.
Mr. Stoner,
Yeah.
Chairman Sullivan,
Me and the bird are here, yes.
Mr. Sachs,
Here.
Mr. Shapiro,
Here.
Ms. Sawant,
Here.
Mr. Hart,
Here.
Mr. Lavala,
Here.
Ms. Drum,
Here.
and myself, Kim Silverman.
Okay, when we last had recess, we came back for the final application of the evening. This is 38-19Z. It's Old Bridge Rifle and Pistol Club. Major site plan, preliminary and final with the variance. This is located in the R120, block 8005, lot 5. This is the range on the back end of Jake Brown Roads, to reorganize and reconstruct, modernize an existing outdoor shooting range. Peter Klauser is representing the applicant. I'm going to mute now so you guys can talk.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself from this application.
I recall you did last time as well. We understand that, and we thank you for being with us this evening, Vice Chairman.
Good night, Bruce.
Bruce, Mr. Stoner, you'll be voting on this.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have 7 voting members for this application
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
with Mr. Stoner. Okay. We were here during your last zoning board meeting, and we began the presentation of this application through Kevin Ball, who is the president of the club, and I had Mr. Ball testify as to the operations of the club and provide the board with some background, some basis for what is proposed. This is the existing Old Bridge Rifle and Pistol Club. It's shown on the plan there, and you can see that it's very centrally located on a large parcel of property surrounded by woods, and it has been there for a few decades. The applicant is proposing to reorganize and modernize the range, sort of get all the ranges with the exception of the shotgun range facing in the same direction, and to install a much needed parking space. When we were here last time, Mr. Ball testified as to the utilization of the site, the operations, hours of operation. They sort of run from the morning until a little before dark at night. There's no utilities at the site. There's no lighting at the site. And one of the comments from Mr. Ball during his testimony was in response to a request from Ms. Shapiro that the entranceway be widened. I believe it was to 20 feet, and that was a commitment that we made on the record last time that we would do that. Also identified the need for the number of parking spaces. So I have 2 witnesses this evening, Jay Patel from Crest Engineering to provide the engineering testimony. I'm going to ask Mr. Patel to identify the existing conditions. We have a nice colored rendering of the existing conditions and then the proposed conditions. And then there's sort of 4 major points that I'm going to ask Mr. Patel to hit on. There's some grass to gravel discrepancies on the plan that I'd like for him to explain. Some ADA access to the range and some paths through the woods that will create. There's waiver relief and variance relief that we're asking with regard to the parking area. Yeah, that's the proposed conditions. I think there is a colored rendering of the existing conditions that we submitted earlier this week. So describing some of the waivers and variances associated with the parking area. It's a secluded location. It's a private parking area. And then testify as to there's trailer storage on the site, which generates a variance. And again, it's also a private club, not open to the public, and it's rather secluded. So if I could, Mr. Chair, I'd like to have Mr. Patel sworn, place his credentials on the record, and then start him through his testimony.
Go ahead, Mr. Klauser.
Mr. Patel, I'm going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
Sure. My name is Jayesh Patel, last name Patel. I'm a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, and I work with Crest Engineering. I'm a partner over there.
And I believe you testified before this board before, Mr. Patel?
That is correct.
Yeah, Mr. Patel I recognize Mr. Patel and I recognize his credentials as well and his expertise. We accept him.
Thank you.
Jay, this is the rendering of the existing range that you prepared. I think Larry would mark this A1.
Yep, let's
I don't
mark
think
it
we
as
have an
A1.
exhibit. Yeah, I don't think we have an exhibit yet because we
Right.
started with Mr. Ball's testimony.
Right.
Jay,
Mark it.
if you could just take the board around the existing conditions here a little bit, and then we'll move on to what the proposal is.
Sure. So, I mean, this particular, the site is 121.94 acres. As you know, this site is developed with approximately 5 acres, and the range consists mostly in the center of the property, and it has a driveway coming from the Jack Brown Road. What you see over here is there are 9 different pits or the ranges. There's a shotgun range, there's a chrono pit, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 on the left side looking west. 3 pits that then on the right side of those 3, number 4 and 5, which is also the regular shotgun pits, the regular shooting pits, and then you have the 2 on the right side, the ranges. There are 9 total existing pits and ranges. Currently, most of these ranges are having a gravel as a base. We identify on our plan grass because some of the ranges had the grass growing and looked like a grass, So we are going to correct with the next submission our plans to show as existing gravel areas for the base. All these pits and ranges have on the sides the mounds, which is the berms, and at the end also they have the berms. So this particular, the areas which is shown is in the middle of the property. All the surrounding this range have the wooded area. There are other features on the site which is shown in the darker gray areas, are the trailers as well as couple of the portable, portable potties, and as well as there are a couple of the trailers as well as the trash enclosures.
Jay, if I could just interrupt, there's sort of that gray snake that comes into the property. That's just highlighting the access road that's into the property.
That is the access road coming from the Jack Brown Road.
And then the gray rectangles that we see on because it might be hard to read how they're labeled. I know you labeled them appropriately. Those are the trailers that are on the site that are currently used, which Mr. Ball described in his testimony before.
Correct.
As to their
These
use.
are the gray areas, the darker rectangle areas shown as those are the trailers.
And then now we can see the lighter brown areas are identified as the decks. Those are the stable standing platforms to be utilized as part of the shooting ranges.
That is correct.
Okay. And then you could see, you've noted on the plan, grass, some stone. Depending on the time of the year, as you indicated to me, the grass sort of grows through the stone and might have given you the misunderstanding that it was actually grassed area, but it's really stone and it's going to stay stone.
Correct. It is going to stay stone.
And what you were indicating is that you're comfortable that you can update your stormwater management report to meet any of the applicable criteria, even though you're using gravel now as opposed to stone as your coefficient.
That is correct. So we are going to revise our plans as well as the stormwater calculations to reflect the existing as well as the correct proposed conditions.
And we saw the aerial photograph that we started with, and I don't think there's any need, Vina, to click back onto it. And that was, all the board got to see it and the public. That sort of supports your, the fact that it's very much centrally located on the property, right?
That is correct. Yeah, the property is 120, close to 122 acres, and the 5 acres of developed area literally falls in the center of the property.
Okay. So and maybe it would be appropriate if we could move on to the rendering that you had that shows the proposed improvements.
Sure.
There we go.
right.
So sort of in the center of the rendering here, in
Let's
the very,
mark this
very
A-
center. Oh, I'm
let's
sorry,
mark this A2.
yes.
A2.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah.
Thank you. A2 is a rendering of the proposed site plan. So Jay, in the center is kind of what we were looking at before.
Correct.
And then we have on the left side, some of those ranges have been reoriented to the north to sort of line up with the other ranges.
Correct.
And then we've added some ranges on the right-hand side. Those are the 4 new ranges that are part of this.
That is correct. Right.
And then of course, the parking area.
Right. So on the left, which you're looking at northwest corner, the 3 pits are reoriented. The new reorientation is shown, which will have the gravel cover. With what you see is in the yellow color is some 20 feet strip of the dirt, and it's just going to be surrounded by, each one will be surrounded by the same configuration, like the end berms as well as on the side berms, to provide, the safety as well as the privacy and, sort of things like that. On the right side, the long one, which is also the range, which is about 200 yards. And on the right side of that, the longer range, there are 3 instructional pits, which are the shorter ones. They are going to be similar to what I just described. The last 20 feet will be, kind of dirt. The remaining portion of the pits will be gravel, and on 3 sides will be berm. Then we are also proposing the parking lot, which is coming on the right side, lower right side, where the driveway is coming into the range area. The driveway is, the parking lot is provided with 120 parking spaces. The parking lot will be gravel. As we can just scroll a little bit further down. Okay, there you go. So the parking lot is right on the next to the existing driveway, which will provide the easy access from the driveway to the parking lot, and 120 spaces are provided. We're going to have is required by the ADA regulation, 5 handicap accessible spaces, which are shown in those darker gray areas within the lighter gray parking lot. The parking lot is shown striped, but since this is going to be gravel area, it's going to have the either the concrete bumpers to delineate each parking space. From the handicap spaces, the access will be provided through the woods with a stable from ADA compliant path to the ranges or pits.
And then Jay, there is some relief associated with the parking physically. The parking lot stall sizes are 9 by 18 that are proposed.
Correct.
And we're not, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And there's landscape standards in the ordinance for parking lots, and we're not applying those to this parking lot.
Right. So the the parking spaces are provided with a 9 by 18 versus 10 by 20 is required by the ordinance, as well as there are some landscaping islands and number of trees and types of landscaping, as well as the parking lot itself. The surface has to be bituminous or concrete. So we are asking for the waivers from all this. This is a private facility. It is accessible to the members only, and the members are familiar with the site, as well as they are familiar because they come routinely. They are familiar with the facility, as well as they will be familiar with the parking location, as well as the size of the parking. This particular, since it is a private facility, 9 by 18 is more suitable. It is not like a shopping center. So I believe the 9 by 18 size is suitable for this type of facility. Regarding the landscaping, again, since this is in the middle of wooded area and it's surrounded by hundreds of feet of wood, it makes sense to make as compact as possible still, and not disturb additional tree area to provide additional landscaping. It defeats the purpose. So we are asking for landscaping waiver. Particularly, this particular site is in the middle of like nowhere. Particularly, this range is in the middle of 122 acres of property, all surrounded by wooded area. It makes sense to have this, particular parking lot have landscaping waivers.
Jay, there's no site lighting proposed as part of this application, is that correct?
That is correct. Currently there are no lighting. There is no electric service at the site. And as you have heard, the hours of operations are from 9 a.m. to 1 hour before the sun down. So all these operations or the activities occur during the normal daytime, and they have not need. They have been operating for years, and it's going to continue to operate under the same time frame. So there is no lighting proposed there because there is no electric services available at the site.
Okay. Just to clarify, the darker gray handicap parking spaces, those will be paved in accordance with ADA requirements.
That is correct. It's going to meet the ADA requirements, whatever the size, slope, as well as the accessibility. And as you see, those two parking spaces, light gray, there's in the middle, there's an accessible, path will be going from these two spaces through the wood and into the pits area. So we are going to confirm with the path will be provided meeting the ADA requirements.
I think you indicated in our discussions that in response to one of Nicole's comments, that some of the excavation for the parking lot in order to create the stone base, that material stays on site in order to create the berms for the new ranges.
That is correct. So all these berms, what you see in the green, will be using the same material which will be excavated out from creating the parking lot as well as this new branches and pits.
And we're asking for a variance to have a stone parking lot as opposed to a paved parking lot. You indicated that this is a private facility that the members will be familiar with. We know they'll take care of it. It's their own. The public is not coming here. But the stone, in your opinion, would have less of an impact than paving all of that.
That is correct. Also, the reason for providing the stone is we still have to manage the storm water. So what will happen with this gravel parking lot, with the gravel will provide the infiltration of the water through the surface into the what we have designed as the stone storage bed underneath the surface of the gravel parking lot, which will store the storm water, and it will help infiltrate into the ground, therefore meeting the stormwater requirement. We are providing the stormwater through this stone storage bed. And so that's another reason that gravel parking lot will help mitigate the stormwater runoff.
And Nicole, or actually Dina and Nicole in their report have a number of technical comments. And aside from the waiver relief and variance relief that you've discussed and that Allison will discuss, you have no issue complying with any of the technical comments of the reports. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you have applied to the DEP for an LOI, but anybody that does what we do for a living right now knows that the DEP is working on very much a skeleton crew and everything is just taking forever.
That is correct. So we have delineated the wetlands, within the area of the disturbance or existing range area, and be confident that the 50-foot buffer would apply, and any existing or the proposed range areas is outside of that 50-foot buffer. So we have tried to contact, we have made several attempts to contact DEP to have them come out to site, take a look at the wetlands area. Since they've been locked down, it's when everything starts opening again, probably somebody will come out. That's what they have promised us.
And from your firm's field studies out there, you're confident that what we're presenting in front of the board is achievable from a wetlands perspective?
That is correct.
Jay, is there anything that I missed that you want to share with the board?
I think you covered everything. Regarding those storage containers or trailers, we are asking for variance because in this particular zone, the outdoor storage is not permitted. And the trailers are existing. They've been on site for number of years. As Mr. Ball have explained in the last meeting, that they've been used for the by the different the competitions or leagues, as well as storage of different materials, maintenance of the yards and everything. In the locations of the storage in this particular site, it's surrounded by the wooded area. There is more than 500 feet to the nearest property, and it's all surrounded with a wooded area. So it's not a concern of visibility or anything else from the road or the nearest property line. So, it also moving the trailers or to the side yard or rear yard would be bringing closer to the property line, and it defeats the purpose. When you need to access the material, it will be hundreds of feet away. So it makes sense to have the trailers where they are located or, within the range. Serves the purpose.
And then you heard the colloquy last time between the applicant and the board and Mr. Hart that anything that's stored in those trailers will have the appropriate decals on them. And I think they've actually done that already.
I believe that they have done it. If it's not done, it will be done. Right.
Mr. Chair, I have no further questions than Mr. Patel. He's available. We do agree with your professional report as far as any of the technical comments, aside from the waiver relief, which we've identified, which has been identified in the report and we are asking for.
Thank you, Mr. Clauser. What, I missed the one thing that he said. What's the yellow representations at the end of each
Oh,
one?
that's
The backstop?
that's a dirt area that they are using, and that's what sort of looks like in the under the existing. If you see a couple of ranges have the yellow, it's a dirt area. So we are showing slightly different color because most of the surfaces, the range or the pit areas have a gravel surface, but the last 20 to 50 feet, depending on the type of the range or the pit, it's going to be 20 feet of dirt area.
I'm referring to the yellow colors.
Yes, you are.
Is that the backstop?
Yeah, that's a backstop.
Okay,
Correct.
very good. Ms. Shapiro, you're up.
Mr. Chairman, the engineer in his testimony did go through a lot of the engineering comments that I had. I do appreciate, I believe Mr. Clauser had put in testimony that they are widening the entrance driveway to meet the 20 feet requirement as part of fire access. I did also hear that the berms will be created with the excavation from the parking lots. However, I do ask that a note be added to the detail on the plans to indicate should there be borrow fill for the project, that the source of the material, and I have a general language, Mr. Patel, that I could provide you for the note to be on the plan, because I don't want it to get into the situation where you're bringing truckloads of fill and then we're stopping you at the last minute.
No,
So we would appreciate that comment being added. And I'm just going through my notes right now. I do want to see a plan though, and I believe you indicated that you're going to show the firm stable connection to the ranges from those parking spaces, because right now the parking for the handicap spaces don't make sense for the ones that are mid parking lot. I'm going to leave comments on the waivers for the parking to Vina. And then I did review the stormwater management. It was in compliance. I definitely understand your frustration with what's going on with the state right now with DEP. So I just asked that as part of resolution compliance, you get the LOI and you get the numbering on the plan. I did hear that the operations were during the day, so there is no lighting. As far as utilities to the site, what do you have there? Just electric?
There is no electric too.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, no power. And then I think that was it. I don't, I just want to bring up one comment. I was speaking to Mr. Pucciarelli, who's the president of the Historical Society, and maybe this is for Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
And he did say to me that you would be bringing up something to the board's attention to get on record. And, I don't know if now would be appropriate, but I just want to make sure that I don't miss that opportunity to get that on record.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, the gentleman at the Historic Society had contacted Mr. Ball about somewhere on this property there being some sort of a burial ground or a graveyard related to the Brown family. It is remote from where we are talking. It's some 800 feet away. I know Kevin went out and walked around there, and actually tomorrow has an appointment with the gentleman from the Historic Society to take him out onto the site and to walk around there. And if any delineation is requested or required, we'd be more than glad to do that. I think they're looking at an old hand-drawn map, but it is significantly far away from the subject property. We're not interfering with that, but certainly as a courtesy, we're going to meet with not me. There's no reason for a lawyer to do that, but Kevin is going to meet out there with him tomorrow and walk around on the site.
Peter, if I could ask that I come up with a general note for your contractor just to be made aware that delineation will be made, and then that piece, although let's say 400 feet or some odd feet away from the site, just so that it could be identified, because I believe this little piece, I think it's mentioned on the state historic list as maybe an opinion or something. I have to go back and take a look. I meant to do that before tonight's meeting. but if it is listed as an opinion or something on there, I would actually note that on the plan as well. So let me do that research and then I'll provide you with a note just to have that
Yeah, yeah.
for the
That
plans.
note and the note with regard to the clean fill or
Yep.
whatever are both acceptable. Absolutely.
Thank you. The only last thing I want to bring up is there is a contribution to our affordable housing. It's called a non-residential development fee for commercial development, and that's 2.5% of your equalized assessed value. I just bring it up at the board level because when you go get your building permit, 30% is required up front, and at your final stages, the rest is supposed to be provided as well, the final 70%. So I just want to bring your attention to page 10 and then of Vina and my review memo, and it's in section K of the conclusion, just so you're aware that that is in the memo. And that's all
Sure.
for me.
Sure. Understood.
Thank you.
Mr. Watt?
Yes, hi. I think most of my comments have been addressed. However, I just want to go over the waivers that have been requested. I know there are a bunch of landscape waivers, and I just want to make sure Mr. Patel or Allison is going to cover those.
Yes, well, I think that was part of Mr. Patel's testimony with regard to the remote nature of the parking lot, because I think a lot of the landscaping is surrounding the parking lot. The fact that it's a private facility, and then it's not a parking lot for a Target out on 516, where we have the islands and we have sufficient landscaping around us. And I think that was part of his testimony.
I agree. I agree. I just want to make a note that table 3 of the memo had said minimum double island parking lengths to be decided, and I believe you need a waiver from that.
We do. Yeah, it's 30, what are we, 36 feet instead
We
of
are
38?
36. Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that kind of goes
30.
hand in hand with the 18-foot parking spaces,
Correct.
right?
Correct. So basically, in regards to the parking, it's the parking stall length and width, and then the double island parking lengths. And then there are a bunch of waivers related to landscaping. I agree with Peter. The property is surrounded by trees, and this is more like a technical thing. One thing related to the trailer parking, I just want to bring it to your attention because I had spoken to the construction official about trailers parked on the site, and should the board look favorably on this application, I would recommend that the applicant complies with any building department's permitting process.
Sure.
But
Yeah, we'd have the variance relief behind us in order to be able to apply for those building permits.
Right. But that's all. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Sawant. Is the fire marshal here? Mr. Hart? Did you
Thank
had
you. I'm satisfied with the widening of the entrance and the trails we have dealt with, so I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Drum?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I did not officially review this. I've been listening. The only comment I would have more for the board's consideration is my experience on gravel lots is that, 9-foot parking widths are very hard to maintain. Usually you have you don't have an efficient parking on that just because people tend to take up a little bit more spaces, even if you have the curb stops. But it's just something for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Who am I missing? Mr. Lavallo?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, just have a few things. The site where the tree removal is proposed is what was many years ago a farm, I guess probably 5-6 decades ago, and the vegetation that grew up there is a result of that. So the majority of the clearing in those areas is removing trees. It's called secondary growth. So they're not very important trees. So the only concern I had was the parking lot. And the parking lot had some significant trees on it. However, even way before the secondary growth grew up, there was a lot of grade issues in that area. So no trees, I couldn't recommend any trees to be preserved in that area because of the significant grade changes, and it just wouldn't have worked. So I put together the chart in the letter of March 23rd, assessing the fees for the project. And the part where you go from the parking lot, I'm going to ask either Mr. Clauser or Mr. Patel, from the parking lot to the pits, is there going to be any walkway that's going to go through those trees, where you have handicap parking spaces? If they have to park and then walk all the way around the outside, or are they going to go through that vegetated area?
They are going to go through the vegetated area.
Is it going to be just a paved pathway, just a natural pathway? What's that going to be constructed?
I mean, it's whatever is, is acceptable by the engineer, I mean, the outdoor recreational areas requirement for ADAS is firm and stable path. So it could be like compacted, like kind of what do you call the DGA type of material could work, But if it's, the either the asphalt path is acceptable, that's what I would say that could be provided. And I would probably say Kevin can probably give them better answer.
Yeah, I think that if we're going to have asphalt out there for the parking spaces, that they'll end up being asphalt paths. It'll make it easier to comply with DEP. It'll make it a better surface, a nicer surface. And yet, to the extent that there is any additional trees that are required to be removed in order to create those paths, we'll either work around them or we'll provide you with that additional information, Mr. Lavallo.
Yeah, I would think there's enough room to put several pathways through there without disturbing any of the major vegetation.
That's what we think too.
Yeah.
And then just for prior to beginning, you have to install your tree protection fencing.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to look at that after it's installed before issuing the permit to start clearing trees.
Okay.
Understood.
And in terms of the landscaping, I think that most of your comments I would agree with, because it is a stone lot. It is in the middle of nowhere. And if you have no water, there's no purpose to installing any landscape, because it's just not going to survive, especially in that type of soil, in that type of environment. So
Right.
the possibility of landscape survivability is slim. And that would be the extent of my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lavallo. That's an interesting point. I never considered that, but that does make sense that it probably wouldn't exist there.
Right.
It wouldn't survive, I should say.
Yep.
Interesting.
Agreed.
Mr. Sachs, you have anything?
Mr. Chairman, I do not.
Okay. I'm going to go to the board members, as always, left to right. Mr. Scogno,
No, sir, not at this time.
Ms. Kilduff,
No.
Mr. Connor,
No questions.
Mr. Dewhurst,
No.
Mr. Stoner,
No.
and Mr. Psychowski.
No questions.
Mr. Clauser, we're back to you for your next witness.
Thank you, Jay. If I could, I'd like to call Allison, have her sworn for this application, and get her quick credentials on the record for this app.
Ms. Coffin, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
Allison Coffin, COFFIN. I work for James W. Higgins Associates. I'm a licensed professional planner, and I'm certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners.
And you testified before this board before, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. You recognized by all of us. We accept her credentials and our expertise. Mr. Clauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allison, you've worked with us on this project. You've helped us design this project and create the product that's in front of this board. And you were here last time to listen to Mr. Ball's testimony. Is that correct?
That is all correct.
So if you could, there's some variance relief here, a D2. And then, you've heard some testimony with regard to the waivers and the variance for the storage of the containers. If you could take the board through the proofs.
Sure. Special reasons exist for the granting of the requested D2 variance to expand the pre-existing non-conforming use here. Now, the Supreme Court in the Burbridge versus the governing body of Mine Hill Township decision examined the criteria that the board should use when you're looking at a D2 variance. The court determined that when the special reasons concept is applied to the expansion of an existing non-conforming use, things such as appearance and aesthetics, probably less important on this site, which is in the middle of 120 acres of woods, compatibility of the use with surrounding neighborhood become uniquely significant, especially if there's no evidence that the use will be discontinued. What we have here is a site that contains a pre-existing non-conforming outdoor shooting range. There's no evidence that this use is going to be discontinued. And the site plan proposed expands this use in a manner which improves its function and its efficiency in a couple of ways. First, the ranges are being realigned so that they all face the same direction. Currently several ranges face to the west, and the proposed condition has all shooters firing in the same condition to the north. Secondly, the realignment of those western-facing ranges removes the condition of members using a range while the setting sun is in their eyes. Thirdly, the parking lot is being expanded so that it can properly accommodate the use, eliminating the current condition of parking cars 3 deep on busy days and using some of the ranges themselves for overflow parking. This will dramatically improve the way the site functions and the way it supports its membership. Lastly, the applicant has agreed to widen the access driveway to the site, which improves traffic flow on site and allows better access for emergency vehicles. Well, there is also an added benefit in that we're going to be providing ADA access from the new parking field to the ranges. The requested variance can be granted without detriment. The shooting range is an existing non-conforming use of the site, and even with the proposed expansion, occupies only a small portion of the 121 acres of the property. The site is located in an area where there are no residences. It's surrounded by deep woodlands, and it's accessed through an industrial area. The magnitude of the expansion in terms of the number of ranges is not large. So overall, there's no detriment that would result from expanding the shooting range at this location. There's no substantial detriment to the granting of the requested variance for outdoor storage. The storage trailers are an important part of the use, housing the league equipment near the ranges, as well as maintenance equipment and vehicles that are used to run the use. The primary impact of the outdoor storage, such as this, would be aesthetic, but this is an isolated property accessed only by its members with no possible visibility to the general public. Even so, the trailers will be located outside of the required front, side, and rear yards, so there's no impact off-site. The proposed waivers for the parking lot and landscaping around the parking lot can be granted without detriment. The waivers for parking space size are appropriate given that this is a private club, not a public retail use. While the applicant has land to provide for larger spaces, this would require clearing more trees than is necessary, given that the 9-foot by 18-foot spaces function safely. And to Deanna's concern that people may park a little bit further apart than 9 feet, the applicant is providing 120 spaces at 9 feet where 61 are proposed. So if people spread out a little bit and occupy 115 instead of 120 spaces, will still meet the parking requirement of the ordinance quite easily. The waivers for landscaping within the parking lot make sense for this use in this site. There's no public view of the interior of the site from the surrounding properties or roadways, so there's no aesthetic benefit to the public of landscaping the parking lot. The site is only accessed by club members, so there is no need to landscape the parking lot. The proposed variances will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the master plan and zoning ordinance. This is a pre-existing non-conforming use. It's already present on the site. The expansion and the improvement of this use does not create any new impacts on the master plan and zoning ordinance. The purpose of the R120 zone is to designate specific areas for suburban development at a low density in order to avoid disturbance of extensive areas of highly sensitive and critical natural environment. While this use is not residential, it does advance the larger purpose of limiting disturbance of extensive areas of highly sensitive and critical natural environment. The use operates without water, without sewer, or without power being run to the site. And the structures that are proposed, gravel, parking, decks, and trailers, are far less permanent and intrusive than would be required for the lot to be developed with a permitted residential development. So for those reasons, it's my opinion that special reasons exist for the granting of the variances, that they can be granted without detriment to the health, safety, and general welfare of the public, and the granting of the variances would result in an improvement of the site in a manner which is consistent with the intent of your master plan and zoning ordinance.
Alex, thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I have no questions. She's available to the board and your professionals for any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Clauser, and thank you, Ms. Coffin. Vina, would you like to go?
Yes, actually, I have no further questions. Allison has covered every aspect, every planning aspect, so I'm good.
Thank you. Ms. Shapiro?
No, I just defer the parking to Deanna.
Okay. Ms. Trump?
Oh, sorry, yeah, about that. Yeah, so based upon Allison's testimony, it does appear they're well over 2 times the parking. So I have to agree that even if, they're 10 feet apart or even 11 feet apart, there should be sufficient parking.
Thank you. Mr. Lavallo, anything further?
No, nothing further on that.
Okay, they get everybody. How about Mr. Sachs?
I'm good, Mr. Sullivan.
Okay, let's go once around. Mr. Scogno?
No, sir, not at this time.
Ms. Kilduff?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Connor?
No questions?
Mr. Dewhurst?
I'm good.
Mr. Stoner?
I'm good too.
And Mr. Psychowski?
No questions.
Okay, and I don't have any either because I think the presentation was succinct and I think it's rather straightforward and simple. Mr. Clauser, back to you.
Thank you,
go to
Mr.
public?
Chair. Yeah, I would ask
Public.
if you go to the public and then I just have a couple of words.
Okay. Let me just get the right call number on this. This is application 38-19Z. It's for expansion and some other modifications to the Old Bridge Rifle and Pistol Range. It's located deep in the woods at the end of Jake Brown Road. If you have any interest in speaking on this matter, in front of you on the screen, you will see the virtual zoning board meeting, the webinar ID, the password, and the phone numbers to call. This would be the time to do that, and we will give you a minute or so to do so. Once again, if there's a lot of people calling, I would ask people don't be repetitive, and please be succinct in your commentary. Ms. Sawant, do we have anybody waiting?
We have one caller, Rami Joknowitz.
Okay. Ms. Joknowitz, the board attorney will swear you in.
You've already sworn me in, Mr. Sachs. My name is Nina Joknowitz,
Not for
203
this.
West Greystone Road. So
Okay.
there's no reason to
Ma'am.
swear me in again.
Hold on, I don't think you've got sworn in on this one.
Oh,
I don't think
I
you
swear to tell the
testified.
truth, nothing but the truth.
Okay.
So help me
Well,
God,
Ms.
Ms.
baby.
Joknowitz, we pay the attorney to do his job.
Ms. Joknowitz, I don't even know where to start now. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Absolutely, Mr. Sachs. I certainly do.
Thank you. All right, please state your name, address for the record, please.
Nina Joknowitz, 203 West Greystone Road, Old Bridge, New Jersey, Ward 6. You guys are probably wondering, like earlier in the meeting, there was not a single call in, right?
No, we weren't wondering.
You weren't wondering.
No.
You should have been wondering. There's a few things I need to talk about. The first thing is that there's nobody watching but me and Chris. And that's because I actually got to his house. The second thing is that this public notice was not on the Old Bridge website,
Yes,
the one that you're posting right now. So I know I'm not speaking to the gun club, and I apologize, Mr. Gun Club owner. I'm speaking to the board. You failed to actually do your public duty.
This
which is
was
to
on
publicly
the
notify
website. Ms.
Mr.
Joknowitz,
Sachs?
Ms. Joknowitz, 1 second. This was published on the agenda.
This was, listen, if you go to the Old Bridge website to your calendar, it says on the calendar
On,
in the council hall. Excuse me, Miss Kim.
it's on the website and it's the thing that's scrolling across that, because I clipped this right from that.
Listen, I was in the county. I was in your building. I'm telling you,
I thought the building's closed.
well, thankfully I'm friends with the police.
Right there.
Now it is.
No, it was always
It
there.
is not, listen, the police and I sat for 45 minutes looking for this.
I flipped it from there because if you look at my.
I'm not gonna argue.
Mr. Chair, I have an application that I'm in the middle of presenting. The public portion is for the Old Bridge Rifle Club application.
I agree.
I understand that, but I'm only saying to you, for anybody who might be calling in for Old Bridge Rifle or any other matter for that matter.
You have a question, Ms. Jokowitz?
Had access.
Do you have a
Nobody knew.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
Do you have a question, or do you
Yes,
have?
I do have a question.
Go ahead
Mr.
with your
Sachs, I
question.
do have a question.
Sure.
Can you pull up the drawings?
Can I pull up the drawings?
Pull up the drawings, please. I'd
Excuse
like
me,
to have on the drawings
Ma'am, you
exactly
asked me-
where the grave sites are,
Ma'am,
adjacent
you
to the
asked me a
parking
question.
lot.
You asked me a question. You're going to permit me to answer it. I'd love to answer it.
You
The draw-
been detailed.
Okay, first of all, I'm not the host of the meeting. That's done by Miss Savant, and she has all of the exhibits that she has been posting throughout the
Okay,
evening.
Vina.
I'm sitting in my dining room, and I have a full set copy of the plans.
Fine. So
Now-
Vina, can you pull up the picture of the landscaping that they're proposing in the design? You asked me if I had a question.
Sure.
Here you go. I'll give you a question. Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Go ahead with your question.
Where is the graveyard? Where is the ancient graveyard?
Actually, that's going to be determined tomorrow when they go to walk the site.
Okay, so Mr. Sachs,
Yes.
you guys are discussing this today without even having demarcated on this visual of a ancient, gravesite?
Right.
So this came to your zoning board meeting without even the appropriate things. Do you ever wonder why you're doing your job?
Well, first of all, I'm the grave. If you listen to what Ms. Shapiro said
I
earlier
did.
this evening, she indicated that there's going to be a notation on the plan indicating where the grave site is. Now, there's been testimony that it's the belief of the engineer and of the Historical Society that the grave site is located probably within 400 feet of the range. Is that correct, Mr. Clauser?
I think actually Kevin walked off with somewhere closer to 800 feet of the range. He's been out there already and seen it. And we
Okay.
will agree to provide a location of that to Ms. Shapiro and a
So
note
let
on the
me ask
plan.
you a
that'll be
question,
protected.
Mr. Clauser, then.
No,
Yeah,
actually, go
I
ahead,
do have a
Jeff, go ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
So you're going to preserve the location of this historic graveyard, right?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The question is, you're going to preserve the location of these historic graveyard, correct? Wherever it is.
We're going to identify it on the plans with a note that it'll be protected.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. If I was hiking over to check out the graves of this historic site,
You'd be
would it be in
trespassing.
would it be in the firing range of the people, the direction of the guns? I mean, are they going to be shooting over where these dead bodies are?
It's private property. You shouldn't be hiking on it.
So why are we protecting this historic property then? Why don't you just move the dead bodies to some other place? I mean, if I can't visit a historic graveyard, I'm just asking the question because you guys are saying I have to ask a question. So because the fact that nobody else is on this line but Chris and I'm just asking the question. So we can't visit the site. You're going to get it demarcated on the thing. You think it's less than 800 feet from the parking lot that you're going to expand. And you're not going to tell me whether or not you're going to protect me as a private citizen of visiting a historic site in Old Bridge, New Jersey, right?
Mr. Chair, I don't see how this goes to anything to do with this
It
application.
doesn't, and I believe it's all on private property, ma'am.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, let me
It's not a
just.
graveyard.
Yeah, it's considered, apparently, it is a burial site for the Brown family, which is on property that's owned by the applicant. It's not a site that the public is allowed to traverse on.
So
It's
if I
private
was
property.
related to the Brown family, if I was related to Jake's family,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to visit my relatives because
Well, I
it's
guess,
private
no,
property.
you could, but you have to get permission from the property.
Okay, so
owner to
let
do
me ask
so.
you a question. If I get permission and I'm like Mr. Jake's great granddaughter,
Mhm.
and I wanted to go visit there, are the bullets going to be flying over my
No,
head in that direction?
I would imagine that the property owner and the operator of the site would probably give pause and not have anybody shooting off pistols while a member of the Brown family wanted to visit the site.
I was
Presumably,
wondering,
once they determine where
Mr.
it's
Sachs,
located.
have you ever heard the word Mr. Ashanda?
I've
Shonda?
heard the term Shonda, yes.
Shonda.
Yes, I have.
Okay, it's a Shonda that you would be able to shoot over somebody's grave. It's a Shonda. You've been-
Okay. All
Yeah,
right,
oh,
if
I
that's-
saw the
if that's-
face.
If that's your opinion, that's fine, but.
So
but again,
I would
I'm
have
here-
to, so let me
I'm
just
here-
ask you, Mr., as the great-granddaughter of Jake Brown's great, I would have to visit, and you would have to shut it down, but you're gonna be shooting over my relatives,
No,
my
I
dead
didn't say that.
relatives.
I don't think the operator of the site would agree to have shooting activities if a member of the Brown family flew in from Nebraska and wanted to go visit the grave site of their forebears from several generations ago. No, I'm sure I would have more confidence in the operator of the site to do the right thing.
Would you be,
But that-
okay,
with
so
that
let me ask
being
you a
said,
question
let
about
me-
doing the
ma'am,
right
Let me
thing.
just finish. Let me just finish. With that being said, this is not public property. This is not parkland. This is private property.
But the
So,
Historic Society has to visit. You just said that earlier,
well, they're gonna go visit it tomorrow.
which basically means it's a historic burial ground.
No, that's not correct, Ms. Joknowitz. Again, you failed to listen to what Ms. Shapiro said. She was going to investigate the nature of whether or not this is even a historic site on the registry of the state of New Jersey. Did you
No,
hear
I
that
didn't actually
testimony?
fail. So I did hear that testimony.
Okay, all
So,
right.
so let me ask you a question. If it's a historic site,
Yeah,
is it actually owned still by the owners? And if
No.
it is, and if
No,
it
it is
is,
not. No, it is not. At some point over the last 350 years, okay, the Brown family sold this property to somebody who then sold it to somebody else, who sold it to somebody else, who sold it to somebody else. And ultimately it was purchased by the Old Bridge Rifle and Pistol Club. And I'm assuming that occurred probably within the last
Larry,
60 years.
we're tenants, Larry. This is owned by the Brunetti organization. We're
Okay, the
tenants.
Brunetti-
Just
right,
to
then the
clarify.
Brunetti organization.
Same difference, but I just want you to
Same
clarify.
thing, okay. So the Brunetti organization purchased
be
it
clear for the
whenever,
other property.
okay? But at some point, if this was the Brown family homestead, they sold it, okay? Just like the house that I'm sitting in East Brunswick right now, may be on somebody else's burial ground, but I own the property.
but you know what's
quite
really
common
funny?
throughout New Jersey.
But wait, but stop. That's perfect, absolutely perfect. But Lawrence, if you actually started digging in your property and you found bones, let's just say you got a zoning approval from somebody in East Brunswick, and they said you can put your little addition, and you start digging, you find old bones, right?
Where are we going with this? Because what does this have to do with this application?
Mr. Chair, I have to ask, there has to be a limitation at some point.
No, that's okay. If Ms. Joknowitz wants to engage in a dialogue with me, I'll be more than happy to do so. But I think I've made my point that this is private property out of deference to the Old Bridge Historical Society. And by the way, this, in my many years of representing this board, there have been many occasions when members of the Historical Society have come down to testify at zoning board hearings and planning board hearings and have brought up genuine concerns. And those concerns have been considered by the board, and they've also been considered by the applicants when those concerns have been raised under any respective project. So I actually applaud the applicant for meeting with the Historical Society tomorrow, and they'll designate where in fact this burial ground is located. Hopefully it's well marked and well delineated, and it'll be shown on the plans.
I'm only going to make again another a comment to the team that if you guys want to actually get your zoning board recognized by the general public, and by the way, I really don't. I applaud the gun range. Although, by the way, where I live on West Greystone Road, somebody didn't have a backstop, so I really hope this gun club has a backstop. Shot a gun, a handgun. It was adjacent, and he, by the way, works in the township, but and wasn't charged with any crime.
Okay,
But
that's got
that
nothing to do
said,
with
I
this
hope they do have a
application.
backstop because they are backing up to, of course, the what is that? The YMCA, right? Don't you guys back up to the YMCA?
No.
No.
Jake Brown Road, in the back of it, the gun club backs up to the YMCA.
No.
No.
Is there a backstop to this gun club? What they
Yes.
expand?
There are many, many backstops,
Yes.
side stops, and they've been operating there since the 90s.
Well,
Mr.
that's
Chairman?
lovely. Vina, you do a lovely job, by the way. Thank you very much. And but you should actually, the team, you guys, if you really care about the general public of Old Bridge, and I hope you do, but I'm not so sure. If you do, you would make sure that it was publicly available everywhere. If you look at your Old Bridge calendar, it says the municipal complex. Mr. Sachs, you represent this team of lovely people, right? The
Yes.
board. And you know that if it's not public available to the public, that there's ample room to challenge your votes, right?
Oh, of course, but I believe.
So that said, I'm the only person who's physically called into this meeting.
Not true.
Oh, really?
Not
Who
true.
else? Who
No,
called
there-
in?
We had several members of the public testified on the previous application.
I didn't hear a single one.
You can't help that.
It was Mr. Short, it was Mr. Casari. I think that was it for that particular application.
Mr. Kroll called in
And
earlier.
Mr. Kroll called in earlier. So you're the fourth person to call in this evening. In terms of the public notice, the notice was posted on the township website.
It's not on the website. It's
well,
not on your
I-
calendar. You should
I-
look
I
on your
beg to-
calendar.
Ma'am,
Okay,
I beg-
Mr.
I beg
Sachs.
to- I beg to differ with you on that. Secondly, it was also published in the Home News and Tribune.
I just
And
want to, okay.
secondly,
Nobody
if
gets
you
a Home
happen,
News
let me just
Tribune in
finish,
this
ma'am.
town.
Let me just finish. You've asked me a question. I'm going to finish. And it was also anyone who lived within 200 feet of this property also received a notice.
That's where I am
So-
right now, I'm right across the street from the property right now. That's where I am.
No. I didn't mean that. I mean, if you physically own property within
I know
200
what
feet.
you meant, Mr.
Okay.
Sachs, and
Yeah.
I'm telling you that I finally got to a place, sat down and said, they're voting. Did you know they were voting? And this person had just gotten home from their work. And you know what? That's the point. You had changed your meeting time from the 8th to this week. You have changed several things. And
Excuse me?
you know,
What?
Jim, you can keep nodding all you want.
No, the meeting starts at 7:30 and it's.
No,
and it's
not the
7:30.
meeting time, the meeting date. Excuse me, I apologize. The date.
Always
You- the date.
The
From
date
the
is
8th.
already
This
published.
date has always been a
The date was
scheduled
set
date
for the
hearing.
8th. The date was set for the 8th last month, and then you switched it.
Yeah.
The 8th?
Yes.
No. This application was carried to today, which is the 16th. The 16th, we adopt the schedule. We adopt the schedule every December. So in December of 2019, this board adopted a schedule of meetings for 2020. And this is one of the scheduled meetings. We only have one meeting in the month of July, and we only have one meeting in the month of August. Every other month, and November, we only have one meeting. Every other month, we have two meetings. And they're all published. They're all on the website.
You really need to look at your website.
Well, all right.
And that's it. You know, I know you're scratching your skull, and I get it. It's
No, I'm not
frustrating.
scratching my, ma'am, I'm
But
not
just so
scratching
you
my
know,
skull.
it's
I'm-
extremely
I've been-
frustrating to us public. It's very frustrating because we would have wanted to speak on the previous application. And I saw, by the way, Mr. Walker, I applaud you for speaking up against this.
He didn't speak up against it,
Unfortunately,
by
you
the
were
way.
the only one.
He did not speak up against it.
Well, he voted against it. I'm sorry, he voted against everything in the application, every one
We're
of the
talking
variances.
about the Old Bridge Pistol and Rifle Club. This is the application we're dealing with.
I know that, but you know where I'm going.
Okay, well, thank you
Anyway,
for
listen,
calling.
you guys
Thank
have a
you for
lovely
once
night.
again- Thank you
Next
for
time,
once
post
again
it
calling
better.
in, and I'm gonna have to end the call right now. Thank you. Is there anyone else, Lena?
Next caller, number ending in 4242.
Caller, please identify yourself.
My name is Richard Pucciarelli, Pucciarelli. I am president of the Madison Old Bridge Township Historical Society. The address is 4216 Route 516.
Sir, let me swear you in. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I just want to go over just a few things. First of all, I want to compliment and thank the applicant, Mr. Clauser, for their cooperation with the Historical Society on our request to actually delineate this cemetery on the applicant's property. And Mr. Ball as well in the Old Bridge Rifle and Pistol Club. I want to thank everyone for their cooperation and help. It's greatly appreciated. Also, I just wanted to give just a quick historical overview so the board just has this in front of them. This property was a historical site. I know Ms. Shapiro said there's an opinion letter from the NJDP listing this as a possible historic site of the Brown family. The Historical Society had been trying to trace this cemetery since the 1980s. That's how far back this goes. Actually, this was also went back to the prior clerk of the town, Mary Brown, which some people might recognize. She had a great interest in finding this cemetery because of her descendants. Hopefully tomorrow I will be going out there with another member of the Historical Society, and we will make a best faith effort to find this cemetery. We're hopeful we can find it. We have some maps and materials that were left to us by Mary Brown, and I have someone who's going out there who was out there years ago also searching. So hopefully we'll be successful and we'll be able to delineate the property for Mr. Ball and the Old Bridge Rifle and Pistol Club. But that's the only comment I have. And by the way, I know this meeting occurred today because I did listen to when the continuance was and the date and the time, so I knew exactly when to call in to follow up on this. So the board does put that information out at its meetings when it does have continuances. If you just listen, you'll hear when the application, and the chairman does a very good job of giving that information out to the public. So thank you very much and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Bucciarelli.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Swan.
It is again Ms. Joknowitz.
If it's the same caller, there's no reason to take it. If someone else is using her phone, we'll let them speak.
I will have to let the person talk to find that out.
Okay.
But she signed in as Rami Joknowitz.
Okay, I think she said that she was with someone else, Chris or someone.
The other one's Cordelia Porkchop. I call it pork.
Sir, who is this?
Oh, please. Hello.
The microphone is now muted and the hand is down. I'm looking at the attendee list.
Oh. Is there another caller?
No, there is none.
Reach the zoning board? Did that call go, if that was a cell phone, that may have been,
No, actually, they muted themselves, so there's nobody waiting, and the hand is down now.
Okay.
They've lowered their hand.
Okay. So there are no more further calls, right?
No, there's
All
no
right.
one.
I'll close the public portion. Mr. Clauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the application of the Old Bridge Pistol and Rifle Club for D2 variance relief and for preliminary and final site plan approval. This is a long-awaited project for the club, an opportunity to kind of revitalize and freshen up and modernize their range and provide what they need as much needed parking for the site for it to operate better. It also allows the opportunity for ADA access to be included. As a result of this application being in front of the board, the fire marshal has now been able to review the site. Your engineer's been able to review the site. We made some commitments to make the site a little bit more accessible from an emergency standpoint. I know they've been out there and we're comfortable that they could get back there and to identify for both your building department and your fire officer, the storage that's on the site. As Allison testified to, under the case law for this, when there's no thought that the site is being eliminated, that the use is being eliminated, we should look to improve and make the site function better as the use, as its use, and to make it more efficient. And I think that's what this application does here. The Rifle Club's been around for a long time. They have a lot of members. They're not going anywhere. And I think that as a result of this application, we really get an opportunity to clean up the site and make it function more efficiently. So I would ask if the board could act favorably on the application.
Thank you, Mr. Clauser. It was a good presentation by your group, and it was to the point. I hope that you're successful, you or your people is successful in helping the Historical Society locate anything that they may find in that general vicinity. Having said that, Mr. Sachs, I think we have a D2 followed by some waivers or bulks.
I think we have, we have one bulk, I think, right? And then several waivers.
Okay.
And preliminary and final. So let's take the D2 first.
Okay, board, this is D2 for an expansion of pre-existing non-conforming use, the range to continue to use the range. Does someone want to move this?
I'll move it for approval. Psychowski.
Mr. Psychowski moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
Who's second?
Dewhurst.
Was it Dewhurst? Okay. Mr. Dewhurst is second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Geldof?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Psychowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Then we have the bulks, right?
Yes, and design waiver.
And the design waiver?
Yep.
Okay. Someone want to move the bulk and the design waiver?
Move it, Connor.
Second.
Second was, I believe, by Mr. Stoner. It was Connor and Stoner, I think.
Yes. Stoner second. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Geldof?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Psychowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Once again, thank you for your presentation and your
preliminary and final.
Preliminary and final, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll move the preliminary. Someone want to second me?
Second. Kilduff.
Roll
Okay.
call.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Geldof?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Psychowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Somebody want to move the final site plan?
I'll move it. Psychowski.
Second.
I'll
Second by
second it,
Stoner.
Scogno.
Mr. Stoner seconded. Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Geldof?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Psychowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. I thank everybody for being here this evening. Do we have any further?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Yeah, good luck on the project.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Silverman, do we have any more, anything to bring before the board? Further business?
No, not for tonight. We have we're starting to get a very busy schedule going for next month, and I will definitely email everybody and let them all know what's
Next
going on.
meeting date is when?
The 6th of August. It's the only meeting in August.
Correct. Remember that board members only meeting August 6th. Mr. Stocks, anything to bring before the board?
No, nothing,
Oh,
nothing, Mr.
You
Sullivan.
mentioned something about coming back into the building. There was an email out, right?
That's going to happen, Mr. Swan, correct? Until the building actually goes public again?
Yes, so I believe the next meeting is going to be again an electronic meeting.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they haven't opened to the public, and I think they thought that might be a better idea.
Let me just comment. I could just tell you this, and I'm going to equate it to what's happening with the court system.
Yep.
There is not a courthouse in the state of New Jersey that's open yet. I think the closure order goes up to July 26th, and I expect that that'll be even continued further. I don't expect any courthouse will be open until the fall. So but certainly for August 6th, we'll do it remotely and we'll see where we are in September, I guess.
Right.
All right.
Anything else?
If I have any information, I will pass it on to everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
And Ms. Swan, you have nothing else to bring for the board, right? Okay. Well, thank everybody for being here tonight. Enjoy a couple of weeks, and we'll be back on Zoom again. I'll ask someone to move for an adjournment.
Motion.
All in
Second.
favor? All in favor?
Favor?
Well, aye.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Everyone.